He should also be the real leader of Akatsuki. Judging from the clothes and the mask, the one fighting with him should be the leader of Amitsukami. Yamato, on the side, guy's side with emotion, I didn't expect that Amitsukami would suddenly attack Akatsuki. Kakashi said with some fear. Fortunately, they are on opposite sides. Otherwise, if these two organizations join hands, Kakashi didn't finish his words, but everyone present understood that if these two people join hands, the ruling position of the 5 great shinobi villages in the shinobi world would be in jeopardy. Everyone's attention was attracted by the fierce battle between the leaders of Amitsukami and Akatsuki, and they didn't notice the worried look on Jishue's face at the moment. Even a layman can see at a glance that the battle between Hyojin and Nagato has fallen into a stalemate, and in contrast, Hyojin, whose chakra is tied down by the 9 seals of the Phantom Dragon, is in a more passive position. On the other side, Shinichi's eyes flashed as he watched the battle intently. He was wondering if he should step forward and help Hyojin at this time and completely eliminate Nagato, but looking at the outer Daimon Golem protecting Nagato, he hesitated for a while. He can't say why, but his intuition tells him that the outer Daimon Golem in front of him is not something he can easily deal with. Bippa Juzo, on the other hand, was secretly on guard against Jiraiya and the others, and had no intention of stepping forward to help Nagato, because he knows very well that this level of battle is not something he can easily intervene in. On the battlefield, is it his chakra that interfered with my technique? Nagato suspected that it was Suejin's chakra that interfered with him, causing the failure of the Hyuga technique. The resurrection failed, and the 4 paths of pain were destroyed. Therefore, he once again used the Hyuga technique. In an instant, under the control of the Black Rod, the path of hell followed Nagato's will, and once again summoned King Yama. As the phantom of King Yama rose from the ground, everyone in the field looked over. However, the bloody mouth of the phantom of King Yama opened for a long time, but the destroyed 4 paths of pain still didn't come out. No, it's because of that black ball. Nagato quickly realized that it was not his technique that had gone wrong, but the black ball that destroyed the 4 paths of pain was strange. The truth-seeking jade, which contains the 7 attributes of yin-yang, 5 elements, and chakra, can directly and completely decompose objects on the material level. Whether it is the physical body or the spiritual body, there is no exception. Only the chakra of the 6 paths of pain or the mastery of immortal techniques can compete with it. Therefore, the 4 paths of pain were completely destroyed by truth-seeking, and even the technique of the path of hell could not repair them. On Hyojin's side, after noticing the appearance of Jiraiya and the others, he understood that he had to find a way to escape. After all, he was now the leader of Amitsukami, and Amitsukami was one of the urgent targets of the village, so it was difficult for him to judge whether Jiraiya would attack him or not. In addition, the numbness in his body was getting worse. This numbness was not caused by his spiritual body being torn apart by Nagato's 9 seals of the Phantom Dragon, but because he had absorbed too much chakra of the Dragon Vein. This was because the Dragon Vein chakra contained a large proportion of nature energy. It was fine to absorb a small amount, but once he absorbed too much, it would cause the nature energy to continuously accumulate in his body. For Hyojin, who had yet to master immortal techniques, the nature energy accumulated in his body not only could not help him, but it was also a poison that would kill him. If the nature energy accumulated in his body exceeded the limit that his body could withstand, his body would become one with nature due to the excessive absorption of the nature energy, and he would fall into a state of petrification. In other words, if Hyojin mastered immortal techniques, then the Dragon Vein would be the strongest tailed beast, and it would be able to leave 9 tails behind. This was because the Dragon Vein chakra itself contained nature energy, which allowed Hyojin to skip the process of absorbing nature energy and instantly enter immortal mode. Moreover, he could maintain this state for a long time. However, if Hyojin did not master immortal techniques, then the Dragon Vein would be of less help to him than all the tailed beasts. Just as Hyojin was secretly thinking of countermeasures, Jiraiya, who had already entered immortal mode, made his move. After some careful observation, Jiraiya noticed that Hyojin and Nagato were in a stalemate. For a moment, no one could do anything to the other. This was the best time for him to deal with the Akatsuki and Amitsukami in one fell swoop. If he missed this opportunity, it would be extremely difficult to deal with these two godlike experts again. Therefore, Jiraiya suddenly jumped to a high ground and said in a low voice, "Immortals, please!" Croak, croak, croak. The two immortals immediately nodded. Immediately, their abdomens bulged, and a wave of breathtaking frog croaks came from their mouths. Seeing this, Hyojin secretly said, "Oh no." Jiraiya's Genjutsu in immortal mode left a deep impression on Hyojin. Although he can't remember the specific name of this technique, he knows that this Genjutsu is launched through sound as a medium. In other words, whether it is his Tenseigan or Nagato's Rinnegan, they are not immune to this non-pupil type of Genjutsu. After a moment of daze, when Hyojin came back to his senses, he found himself in an illusory space similar to the esophagus of a toad. Glancing around slightly, Hyojin's face sank. At this time, he was surrounded by 4 big toads, one holding a sword and the other hand outstretched. The outstretched hands of these 4 big toads intersected, forming a barrier, trapping Hyojin inside. Of course, Hyojin is not the only one trapped. Nagato is also next to Hyojin at the moment, in the same situation as him, also under the Genjutsu, and his consciousness fell into this illusory space controlled by Jiraiya. Trapped in this narrow space, Hyojin and Nagato looked at each other. The scene was a bit awkward for a while. At this time, Jiraiya's voice came from all directions. "Nagato, as long as you are willing to turn back, I can guarantee your safety and persuade the village to accept you." Until now, Jiraiya has not given up on Nagato. Nagato, who is trapped in the illusion, did not panic. He looked around indifferently. "Teacher Jiraiya, you should know very well that this is impossible." Jiraiya sighed softly. For Jiraiya, a master and disciple killing each other is too cruel, but if he has to make a choice between Mai and Nagato, Jiraiya can only give up on Nagato. Then, Jiraiya said to Hyojin, "Yama, you are a wanted criminal in the village, and your Amitsukami organization has committed many crimes. I have to kill you here." Hyojin also has a calm face, and said lightly, "If you can do it, you can try." In the real world, Jiraiya took out a scroll, from which he summoned 2 huge stone swords, and slowly walked towards Hyojin and Nagato. Because both of them are under the illusion, Nagato's 9 seals of Phantom Dragon and Hyojin's 4-symbol seal were unknowingly lifted. Then, Hyojin unconsciously exited the Tenseigan chakra mode, and the 2 truth-seeking balls around him also dissipated, and the outer Tao demon statue that was protecting Nagato also disappeared in a burst of white smoke. It can be said that Hyojin and Nagato are in a state of defenseless at the moment. Even a genin who just graduated from a ninja school can easily kill them at this moment. But at this time, Jiraiya is not the only one present. Almost after he successfully used the illusion to attack Hyojin and Nagato, Jishuei and Shinichi, as well as Konan in the air, attacked at the same time. Konan, who has been paying attention to Nagato, was the fastest. She fell from the sky like an angel, directly wrapped Nagato and Tendo Pain, who lost control and fell to the ground with a paper release. While lifting them into the air, she controlled the paper to attack Jiraiya. Countless pieces of paper fluttered about like snowflakes, causing the battlefield to descend into chaos. Jiraiya had to stop, temporarily inserted the 2 giant stone swords in his hands in the ground, then made a hand seal and used immortal technique Great Flame Bomb. In the flames, Jishuei and Shinichi rushed towards Hyojin at the same time. The 2 of them looked at each other and guessed that the other had the intention of rescuing Hyojin, so while pretending to resist, they advanced to Hyojin's side. After getting close to a certain range of Hyojin, Jishuei and Shinichi secretly tried to dispel the illusion on Hyojin one after another, but found that ordinary methods can't dispel Jiraiya's illusion at all. Jishuei frowned. Is Jiraiya, Sama's illusion, so powerful? Shinichi thought to himself, Strange, it can't be dispelled. Knowing that the opportunity is limited and can't be delayed any longer, Jishui made up his mind and activated the Manjikyu Sharingan, and then took advantage of the short gap when his back was facing everyone. He directly used the Manjikyu Jinjutsu on Hyojin. There are many ways to dispel Jinjutsu, and covering one Jinjutsu with another Jinjutsu is a very high-end method to dispel Jinjutsu, but the requirement of the caster's mastery of Jinjutsu is extremely high. Looking at the entire shinobi world, I'm afraid that only two Manjikyu Uchiha can use their own Jinjutsu to cover Jiraiya's Jinjutsu. In an instant, with the rapid rotation of the Manjikyu Sharingan, Jishui's Sharingan Jinjutsu finally covered Jiraiya's Jinjutsu, barely taking the control of Jiraiya's Jinjutsu from Jiraiya's hands. At the same time, in the Jinjutsu space, Jiraiya said to Hyojin, "No one can dispel this Jinjutsu. You can't escape." Before Jiraiya's voice fell, Hyojin's figure gradually blurred. Jiraiya was taken aback. "What's going on?" Hyojin naturally understood what happened, so the corner of his mouth curled up and said to Jiraiya and Nagato, "Excuse me, you two." In addition to Jishui and Shinichi, Hyojin actually has a backup plan, and that is the Ryumyaku that lives in the gourd artifact around his waist, so he is not too worried about falling into Jiraiya's Jinjutsu. As long as he can delay enough time, the Ryumyaku will be able to drag his consciousness out of Jiraiya's Jinjutsu space. In contrast, Nagato is very passive in this aspect. Outer Path Golem is just a body without a soul. So although Outer Path Golem has the function of a tailed beast in many aspects, it can't awaken Nagato, who is trapped in the Jinjutsu. Chapter 363. With Jiraiya in Sage Mode taking the lead to attack, followed by Konan, Jishui, and Shinichi, the onlookers also attacked one after another, and a melee immediately broke out. In order to rescue Nagato, Konan directly confronted Jiraiya. The two Manjikyu Sharingan possessors in the field, Uchiha Jishui and Uchiha Shinichi, were fighting next to Hyojin. It seemed like they were fighting, but in fact, they were guarding Hyojin at a close range. Bippa Juzo, the only remaining member of the Akatsuki, was suffering. Kakashi, Guy, and a large number of Cloud Umbu members stared at him, surrounded him, and started beating him up. Unlike the previous confrontation between Hyojin and Nagato, the current battlefield has a bit of the appearance of a shinobi war. All kinds of kunai and shuriken, fire release, wind release, water release, and other ninjutsu emerged one after another. In just a short time, the whole battlefield has become a mess. There is no doubt that Jiraiya in Sage Mode is the strongest person present besides Hyojin and Nagato, coupled with the two Toad Sages on his shoulders, in terms of combat power alone. Whether it is Konan, who has mastered Paper Release, or Jishui and Shinichi, who have Manjikyu Sharingan, none of them are his opponents in a melee. After turning over and barely dodging Konan's Paper Release attack, Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. Konan, who has mastered Paper Release, has unparalleled mobility. Even in Sage Mode, it is not so easy for Jiraiya to hurt her. So Jiraiya deliberately exposed a flaw and immediately looked for an opportunity. Toad Oil Bomb. Fiercely opening his mouth, Jiraiya sprayed a large amount of toad oil. The sticky toad oil, like a flying arrow, instantly hit Konan in the air, drenching her whole body. Konan's eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. This sticky toad oil is very effective against Paper Release. Once she is stained with toad oil, her Paper Release can no longer be used as before. After succeeding, Jiraiya did not continue to attack, but stopped and shouted, "Konan, I know you are not a madman who is eager for war. Turn back. If you continue like this, you will drag the whole shinobi world into hell." Konan said coldly, "Jiraiya, Sensei, you have not experienced pain. You will not understand." After saying that, Konan spread her wings and rushed straight toward Jiraiya. Seeing this, Jiraiya knew that something was wrong and quickly dodged. Boom! Boom! Just as Jiraiya dodged, Little Nan's body fiercely slammed into his previous position. Soon after, his entire body exploded, sending up a cloud of smoke and dust with a loud bang. Paper clone. Jiraiya frowned. Only now did he realize that Conan, who was drenched by his toad oil, was just a paper clone. At this time, Conan's body has already flown into the air and met up with Nagato, who was previously held in the air by him using paper release. From the beginning to the end, Conan didn't have any intention to fight with Jiraiya. Because Conan is very clear that Nagato is the key to everything. As long as Nagato is awakened, whether it is Jiraiya or the leader of Amitsukami, there is nothing to fear. Therefore, she deliberately revealed a flaw to attract Jiraiya's attention, just to find an opportunity to rescue Nagato and dispel the Jinjutsu for Nagato. However, after some attempts, Conan quickly fell into the same embarrassment as Jisue and Shinichi. Ordinary means of dispelling Jinjutsu simply can't dispel the Jinjutsu cast by Jiraiya and the two sage, and Conan doesn't have the same attainments in Jinjutsu as Jisue, so she can't dispel Nagato's Jinjutsu through Jinjutsu. On the other side, after getting rid of Jiraiya's Jinjutsu, Hyojin once again entered the Tenseigan chakra mode without hesitation. In an instant, the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra once again wrapped around his body, and his whole body slowly floated in the air, overlooking the battlefield like a god, either to cover Hyojin's identity or to protect his undercover identity from being exposed. At this time, both Jisue and Shinichi stopped fighting and tacitly retreated far away. At first glance, it seems that the two of them were frightened by Hyojin's power and didn't even have the courage to fight. Both Jisue and Shinichi are the possessors of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and both of them are well-known figures in the shinobi world. But such a strong person didn't even have the courage to fight with the leader of Amitsukami and retreated in panic. This undoubtedly affected the others, causing everyone in the melee to tacitly stay away from Hyojin's position, seeing that a vacuum zone has inexplicably formed around him, so no one dared to approach him. Hyojin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, he is actually holding on, his entire left arm is numb, and the numbness is spreading to his shoulder, and the feeling in his legs is gradually fading. There is no doubt that his body has become petrified after absorbing too much Rimyaka chakra. But Hyojin can't escape now, nor can he show his fear. He can only grit his teeth and hold on, because this is the last and best opportunity to deal with Nagato. After all, Nagato, who has fallen into Jiraiya's Jinjutsu, no longer has the protection of the Gedo Golem, and only Conan is by his side. If he misses this opportunity, then the whole raid will become meaningless, and the combat information of his Tenseigan will also be leaked in vain. Just a little bit more. Hyojin locked on Nagato, who is held in the air by a piece of paper in the distance, while silently mobilizing the Tenseigan chakra in his body, trying to condense the truth-seeking ball again. With his current physical condition, he knows very well that it is very dangerous for him to maintain the Tenseigan chakra mode, let alone condensing the truth-seeking ball. Because his own chakra has long dried up, and using the Ryumyaka chakra will only further aggravate the petrification of his body. Therefore, even if he is already risking his body, the speed of condensing the truth-seeking ball is far less than before. At this time, the battlefield has fallen into a strange state. Conan, who is in the air, can't dispel Nagato's Jinjutsu, so she can only vigilantly guard against Hyojin and Jiraiya. Of course, she is more vigilant against Hyojin. After all, Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode can also fly like her and can easily attack Nagato's body in the air. And because he is afraid of Hyojin's terrifying strength, Jiraiya, who is in the sage mode, doesn't dare to act rashly, so he can only pay attention to Conan and Hyojin. Because Hyojin has to condense the truth-seeking ball, and at the same time he also has to fight against the petrification of his body. So on the surface, he seems to be calm, as if victory is in his grasp, but in fact he is very nervous. At this moment, if there is a Jonin who is not afraid of death coming to fight him, he may not be able to deal with it. And so, the three representatives of Amitsukami, Akatsuki, and the allied forces are facing each other. Time passed, and after a while, Hyojin finally finished condensing the truth-seeking ball, and a black truth-seeking ball slowly flew out from between his eyebrows. If one observes carefully, they can see that there is a big difference between this truth-seeking ball and Hyojin's previous truth-seeking ball. Compared to the previous truth-seeking ball, this truth-seeking ball is obviously smaller, and there is a slight fluctuation on its surface. Others may not understand what this means, but Hyojin himself knows that the surface of a perfect truth-seeking ball should be smooth and calm, and the phenomenon of fluctuation can only mean one thing, and that is, the nature of this truth-seeking ball is not stable, and there is a possibility that it will collapse at any time. Staring at the truth-seeking ball in front of him, Hyojin said to himself, "Big brother, you must hold on." Unlike Hyojin, who is trembling in fear and afraid that the truth-seeking ball will collapse on its own, seeing the truth-seeking ball fly out from between Hyojin's eyebrows, whether it is Conan in the air or Jiraiya on the ground, everyone's expression changed. Both of them saw how the truth-seeking ball killed the quadruple path of pain in an instant, and they know that this seemingly ordinary black ball actually contains a terrifying power. Not to mention resisting it, they can't even touch it. Immortal Fukasaku shouted, "Little Jiraiya, be careful." Jiraiya nodded, but he has a feeling that the other party's target might not be him, but Nagato in the air. At this time, Hyojin slowly raised his right hand that is not petrified, and with a light clench, the truth-seeking ball turned into a shining golden sword and landed in his right hand. With the activation of the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, the chakra in his body was instantly sucked out, and a large amount of dragon vein chakra surged into his body again, causing a large area of his right hand to be petrified. Am I courting death a little too much? Hyojin's heart was trembling with fear, but he still maintained a calm expression on his face. He collected his thoughts and said calmly to everyone present, "It's time to end this farce." After saying that, he did not dare to waste a moment. He immediately waved the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in his right hand and slashed at Nagato in the distance. He no longer cared about the Eye of Reincarnation. If he could not completely eliminate Nagato, he might not even be able to escape, let alone collect the spoils of war. Swoosh as Hyojin's sword slashed down, the dazzling golden light from the golden wheel reincarnation explosion was like sunlight piercing through layers of dark clouds, falling from the sky and sprinkling on the ground. In an instant, before Conan could even react, the golden sword slashed at Nagato, who was wrapped in paper, behind her. Boom! With a loud bang, the paper and the sawdust exploded into a ball. Conan's paper couldn't resist the golden wheel reincarnation explosion at all. It was no different from an ordinary piece of paper. Although the wooden cart under Nagato was specially made, it was also broken into pieces in an instant. Conan turned her head stiffly in disbelief. Elder Nagato, when the smoke and dust dispersed, half of Nagato's body fell from the sky. Conan immediately flapped her wings and flew up, catching Nagato in midair. At this time, because of the severe external injuries, Nagato had already broken free from the control of Jiraiya's illusion through his own ability and regained consciousness. While coughing up blood, he said weakly to Conan, "Don't worry about me. Take my eyes and leave." Conan didn't hear what Nagato said at all. She was concentrating on checking Nagato's injuries. She found that Nagato had been cut in half from the base of his thigh. Everything below the base of his thigh was gone. His organs are not damaged. He can still be saved. Conan was overjoyed. She hurriedly used the paper to cover Nagato's wounds and barely stopped the bleeding for Nagato. Many injuries that were fatal to ordinary people could be saved for the Maelstrom clansmen. Nagato glanced at Hyojin out of the corner of his eye and immediately said to Conan, "It's useless. You are no match for him. Take my eyes and run." It was not that Nagato didn't have the slightest combat power at the moment. He was just confused by Hyojin's calm appearance. He felt that he was no match for Hyojin. Conan shook her head. Yahiko was dead. Nagato was the last pillar of her life. If even Nagato died, then she would lose the meaning of living. So she looked at Hyojin with a murderous look and said, "At worst, We will die together. In fact, Conan still had a trick up her sleeve. But this preparation was not for outsiders, but specifically for Obsidian. Since Obsidian intervened in the Akatsuki organization, she had begun to prepare. Once it was launched, she could guarantee that no one present would be spared. On the ground, looking at the golden sword flying across the sky, Jiraiya's face was dull. He murmured, "What ninjutsu is this?" Immortal Fukasaku, who was on his shoulder, pondered for a moment and said, "The aura of nature on that Yama seems to be getting stronger and stronger. I'm afraid he has also mastered some kind of immortal technique." On the other side, Immortal Shuriken nodded and said, "The child's father is right. This level of aura of nature can't be wrong. It must be an immortal technique. But I don't know what kind of immortal technique it is. It doesn't look like it's from the Ryuchi Cave or the Shikatsu Forest." Listening to the conversation between the two immortals, Jiraiya's forehead was sweating. The leader of Amitsukami was already a god in his normal state. If he also mastered immortal techniques, then Jiraiya really didn't have the confidence to defeat him. Just when Jiraiya was becoming more and more afraid of Hyojin, Hyojin's face was gloomy. "It's a bit off." Fortunately, he had the mask to cover it. Otherwise, everyone present would be able to see the exasperated expression on Hyojin's face. Because of the sudden petrification of a large area of his right hand that was wielding the sword, there was a slight deviation when he controlled the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion. Although he still managed to hit Nagato, he didn't manage to hit his vital parts, leaving Nagato alive. As the sword slashed down, his Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion instantly disappeared, and the truth-seeking ball also collapsed. He no longer had the strength to make a second slash. At this time, Conan slowly landed on the ground with the injured Nagato in her arms. She was ready to launch the final attack without hesitation. But at this moment, Zetsu poked his body out of the ground and said, "Leave Nagato to me." Conan frowned and immediately looked at Nagato. Nagato didn't hesitate and nodded. Soon, a white Jew clone emerged from the ground and wrapped Nagato's injured body like a coat. Nagato, who had lost both his legs, actually stood up by relying on this white Jew clone. At the same time, a twisted whirlpool suddenly appeared beside Nagato. Then a masked man covered in blood walked out of the whirlpool. Chapter 364. With the strange appearance of Obsidian and Zetsu, as well as Nagato standing up again with the help of Zetsu's doppelganger, the melee in the field gradually stopped, and the three forces gathered together. On the Akatsuki's side, Zetsu, Conan, Shinichi, and Bippa Juzo surrounded the two core members of Nagato and Obsidian. On the Coalition Army's side, Jiraiya in Sage Mode was the leader, while Mai's team, 11 and the rest of the Cloud Umbu stood behind Jiraiya. On the Amitsukami's side, there was only Hyojin, but even so, no one dared to underestimate him. He stood there alone, and his aura was even stronger than the other two forces. There is no doubt that with the sudden appearance of Obsidian and Zetsu, the situation in the field has been reversed. Nagato, who has not completely lost his combat power, and Obsidian, who has strange and unpredictable abilities, made the Akatsuki side become the strongest force in the field. Hyojin didn't make any unnecessary movements, and still stood quietly in the same place. In fact, the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion just now failed to completely kill Nagato. He has already lost the last chance to kill Nagato. Regardless of whether Obsidian comes or not, he can't kill Nagato. Therefore, at this moment, he is no longer thinking about killing Nagato and seizing the Rinnegan, but how to get out of here. Under the mask, Kuroto glanced at Nagato, Obsidian, Zetsu, and Conan, who are a threat to him, while thinking about how to get out of the situation. Nagato is injured, and even with the protection of Zetsu's doppelganger, Nagato's mobility should be greatly affected. But Obsidian, Zetsu, and Conan are the top few in the shinobi world in terms of mobility. Once they perceive Hyojin's current situation, it will be difficult for Hyojin to escape. Feeling the paralysis spreading in his limbs, Hyojin's eyes flashed as he thought to himself, With the coalition army on the side, they probably won't want to fight me to the death. Hyojin is very clear that he must maintain his image as the leader of Amitsukami in order to have a chance to escape. Otherwise, with most of his body paralyzed and unable to enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, he will definitely not be able to escape the pursuit of Obsidian and Konan. After making up his mind, Kuroda took the initiative to break the silence and said lightly to Nagato, "You should be very clear that you are not my opponent, and these subordinates around you will not be able to save your life." Nagato, whose body was wrapped by Zetsu's doppelganger, gradually regained some color on his face. He stared at Hyojin with a solemn expression and asked, "Why did you attack our Akatsuki? What is your purpose?" Listening to Nagato's question, Obsidian was surprised. According to his understanding of Nagato, who claims to be a god, would never ask such a question to show weakness. Nagato's style of doing things is only one, and that is, those who obey will prosper, and those who resist will perish. In surprise, Obsidian gradually narrowed his eyes, staring at Hyojin while secretly thinking, "Who is this leader of Amitsukami? How can he make Nagato so afraid of him?" Because of the distance before, Obsidian could only sense that there were two powerful chakra forces fighting in the Hidden Rain village, but he didn't know the specific situation. Therefore, he knows that the leader of Amitsukami must be a powerful enemy. But how powerful is he? He doesn't have an accurate judgment in his mind. Hyojin's mouth curved into a smile, but he didn't answer Nagato's question. He understands that the more ambiguous his attitude is, the more it will confuse and mislead everyone's judgment. And he also hopes that the allied forces can take advantage of the gap between him and the Akatsuki to quickly rescue the Hachibi's Jinchuriki. Looking at Hyojin's calm appearance, whether it's Nagato or Obsidian, they all frowned at the same time. A powerful, unfathomable enemy with unknown intentions is undoubtedly the biggest headache for everyone. On the allied forces' side, Jiraiya's face was gloomy. The Akatsuki's reinforcements actually arrived one step ahead of their own, which made Jiraiya feel extremely absurd. According to the original plan, the main force of this raid should be 3 generations of Naruto, 4 generations of Lei Ying, and 4 generations of Kazekage, these 3 strong people who carry the name of Kage. But until now, these 3 Kage haven't shown up. Comparatively speaking, Mai and Kyumo's forces are still passable. At least they have the combat power to enter the Hidden Rain village. But on the Sand Crypsis' side, not a single person has been seen so far. The entire Sand Crypsis team seems to have disappeared into thin air. At this time, Kakashi came behind Jiraiya and whispered, "Jiraiya, Sama, what should we do now?" From the corner of his eyes, Jiraiya glanced at the giant sphere in the sky where the 8 tails Jinchuriki and Toujien were sealed, and said in a low voice, "We have to find a way to rescue Chillabai first." Rescuing the powerful Hachibi's Jinchuriki is undoubtedly the top priority for the allied forces right now. Kakashi frowned, but Kakashi also understands that while the Akatsuki and Amitsukami are in a stalemate, it is the best time for them to break the earth-shattering heavenly star and rescue the Hachibi's Jinchuriki and Toujien. But the giant sphere is high in the sky. No one present, including Jiraiya, has the ability to fly, so there is no way to break the earth-shattering heavenly star in the sky. Whoosh! Right at this moment, following a sharp whistling sound of wind breaking, 2 unbelievably fast figures appeared on the battlefield one after the other. The figure in front is Hiriko, who is wrapped in bandages from head to toe, but at this time he looks a little embarrassed. The bandages on his body are stained with blood, and a large area of his back is burnt, as if he was struck by lightning. Following closely behind Hiriko is 4 generations Lei Ying. Yondaime Reikage was also injured at this moment, and he was panting, and his chest was heaving like a bellows. His physical strength was obviously overused, but the fierce look on his face didn't diminish at all. He glanced at the battlefield and immediately asked, "Where is Chalabi?" The Kyumo Ombu members immediately crowded around him, and one of them stepped forward and replied, "Lei Ying, Sama, Chalabi, Sama was sealed in that giant boulder by the Akatsuki's leader. Lei looked at the giant sphere in the sky. No wonder I can sense Chalabi's chakra from that giant boulder. Seeing Lei Ying has arrived, Jiraiya's face lit up with joy. He stepped forward and said, "Your Excellency Lei Ying, you've finally arrived." Lei Ying glared at Jiraiya and roared, "What are you waiting for? Kill all these bastards." Jiraiya quickly stopped the angry Lei Ying and said, "Your Excellency Lei Ying, please calm down." The Kumo Anbu members who have seen the strength of Hyojin and Nagato also came forward and whispered to Lei Ying about the current situation, emphasizing the strength of Hyojin and Nagato. Although Lei Ying's character is a bit reckless, he also sensed the confrontation between Tenseigan chakra and Rinnegan chakra in the Hidden Rain village, and understood that whether it is Amatsukumi's leader or Akatsuki's leader, they are both stronger than him. Akatsuki's side. Hiriko, who has the nether release, Kekiai Genkai, quickly distinguished Nagato's identity through Chakra's detection, and understood that this is the true face of the organization's leader, Pain. He stepped forward and looked at Nagato, saying, "I thought something happened to you." Nagato's eyes were still fixed on Hyojin, completely ignoring Hiriko. Following Nagato's gaze, Hiriko looked at Hyojin, and his killing intent burst out. For Hiriko, Nagato has given him the support and attention he needs the most, and this is precisely what he longs for the most. So within the Akatsuki, he is a die-hard supporter of Nagato. Seeing Hiriko's intention to attack, Hyojin's heart trembled. What he is most afraid of now is meeting a hothead who is not afraid of death. Shinichi, who is not far from Hiriko, and Jishui, who is not far from Hiriko, also focus their attention, preparing to intervene at any time. Although they don't think that Hiriko can threaten Hyojin, but if Hiriko makes a move, it is likely to completely ignite the melee, and among the three forces, only Hyojin is alone, so there is a possibility that he will suffer a loss in the melee. "Stop!" But just as Hiriko was about to make a move, Nagato called out to him. Hiriko turned around and looked at Nagato in confusion. Nagato staggered a few steps, and as he walked, he said, "Retreat! You are not his opponent. I will deal with him. You go and deal with the others." Conan followed up and said worriedly, "Nagato, your body." Nagato said decisively, "Only I can compete with him. None of you are his opponent." Bang! At this time, another figure descended from the sky and landed on the battlefield. He is the Three Generations Naruto, who was previously delayed by Obsidian outside the Rain Village. Because of the lack of Obsidian's convenient space-time ninjutsu, the speed of the Three Generations is naturally much slower, and after him, several surviving my Umbu members arrived one after another. Although the strength of the Three Generations has fallen from its peak, as the head of the 5 great shinobi villages, Naruto's reputation is still unique in the shinobi world. Therefore, with his arrival, everyone's eyes were cast towards him. Even Nagato stopped his footsteps. No one dares to ignore the ninja who carries the name Naruto. After a little understanding of the situation on the battlefield, the Three Generations immediately judged that this is the best opportunity to rescue Hachibi's Jinchuriki. So almost without thinking, he said to Jiraiya, "I will send you up." After saying that, without waiting for Jiraiya to agree, the Three Generations decisively threw out the Vajra Wishful Staff in his hand. As a disciple, Jiraiya tacitly jumped to the upper end of the Vajra Wishful Staff, and then with the extension of the Vajra Wishful Staff, he quickly flew to the sky. The plan of the Three Generations and Jiraiya was seen through by Nagato at a glance, but because of Hyojin standing quietly opposite him, he did not dare to be distracted to stop them, and in his eyes, a mere Hachibi's Jinchuriki is nothing. As long as he wants to, he can reseal the Hachibi's Jinchuriki at any time. After reaching the sky with the Vajra Wishful Staff, Jiraiya jumped to the surface of the giant sphere created by Chibaku Tensei and immediately shouted, "Sage Art, Super Rasengan." In an instant, a huge Rasengan appeared in Jiraiya's hand. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, the Super Rasengan, which was integrated with the Sage Art Chakra, smashed a huge hole in the giant sphere. However, although a big hole was broken, Kairabi and Tenseigan were still buried deep in it, and the giant sphere showed no signs of disintegration, still quietly suspended in the sky. Seeing this scene, Jiraiya frowned. Only now did he deeply understand that the giant sphere created by Chibaku Tensei was so difficult to destroy. At the same time, he was also secretly shocked that Jishui could break the sphere in a moment and make it show signs of collapse. Immortal Fukasaku, who was worried about Tenseigan, said, "Little Jiraiya, let us do it." Jiraiya nodded. "Please." Croak, croak. In an instant, the two-toed immortals on Jiraiya's shoulders took a deep breath and let out a burst of cry towards the huge hole created by the super Jiraiya Rasengan. With the cry of the two-toed immortals, a sound wave almost visible to the naked eye surged and poured into the hole. Crack! Not long after, cracks appeared on the giant sphere amidst the vibrations of the sound waves. As the cracks continued to intensify, the giant sphere could no longer hold on and directly disintegrated in the sky, breaking into countless pieces. Kairabi and Tenseigan, who were sealed inside, also showed their figures and fell along with the countless pieces. Noticing that Kairabi and Tenseigan had already fallen into a coma due to being sealed for too long, Jiraiya grabbed the falling Kairabi and removed Tenseigan's psychic connection. Bang! In the white smoke, the huge Tenseigan directly disappeared, avoiding the misfortune of falling into a coma and dying. As for Jiraiya, he protected Kairabi, and with the help of the falling stones, with just a few jumps, he relied on the extraordinary physical quality of the Sage mode to safely land on the ground. After receiving the unconscious Kairabi, the 4 generations laying looked away, lowered his head, and said, "Thank you very much." Seeing the always tough laying bowed his head and thanked him, Jiraiya said, "Thanks to Kairabi, I was able to get out of trouble. So Mr. Laying, you don't have to thank me. I'm just returning the favor." Because of the existence of Hyojin, Jiraiya's rescue operation was not disturbed by the Akatsuki. Even if Hyojin didn't do anything and just stood there quietly, the Akatsuki didn't dare to be distracted. With the arrival of Lei Ying and Naruto, as well as the rescue of Kairabi, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki, the morale of the allied forces also rose, and they were no longer in a panic. Seeing this, Obsidian said to Nagato, "Retreat for the time being." Nagato weighed the pros and cons for a while and nodded. After learning that Mai, Kyumo, and San Crypsis are going to launch a joint raid on the Akatsuki has made preparations to temporarily abandon the Rain Village, and some of their core personnel and materials have already been transferred. Therefore, for the Akatsuki, if they retreat at this time, the only thing they will lose is the Rain Village. Soon, Conan protected Nagato and flew into the air. Obsidian and Zetsu hid separately, and Hiriko, Shinichi, and Biwajuzo also retreated together, calmly withdrawing from the battlefield. On the Allied forces' side, Laying still wanted to pursue, but was persuaded by the 3 generations. In this raid, the 3 villages suffered heavy losses, but the overall combat power of the Akatsuki organization was not significantly reduced, so the raid was a complete failure. Chapter 365. The retreat of the Akatsuki organization was very straightforward and without any hesitation. While Hyojin was still thinking about how to deal with the retreat of the Akatsuki organization, all the members of the Akatsuki organization fled in the blink of an eye. As a result, only Hyojin and the coalition army were left staring at each other. In the face of 3 generations Naruto, 4 generations Laying, and Jiraiya in Sage mode, Hyojin's heart is naturally very weak. At this moment, he has actually lost his combat effectiveness. The newborn Tenseigan chakra that he managed to squeeze out of his body with great difficulty has been used to resist the invasion of nature energy. Therefore, once the coalition army is aware of his current situation, even if Jishui betrays them on the spot, he may not be able to protect him from Naruto, Laying, and Jiraiya. What's more, In order to save Jiraiya from Nagato's Chibaku Tensei, Jishui has overdrawn the power of his Manjikyu Sharingan. At this time, Jishui can't estimate how much combat power Jishui has left, seeing that the leader of Amatsukami is still standing in the same place, neither pursuing the Akatsuki organization nor retreating. The coalition army, who had just breathed a sigh of relief because of the retreat of the Akatsuki organization, became worried again. Sandame, who was holding the golden staff, frowned and stared at Suijin. This time, the joint raid was a huge failure. In addition to self-blame, the three generations are also thinking about the strategy to deal with the Akatsuki organization in the future. In his vision, the strength of the Akatsuki organization is not something that 1 or 2 shinobi villages can deal with. Therefore, using Amatsukami to restrain the Akatsuki organization and let these two mysterious organizations confront each other is the only choice for the three generations. Because of this, even if there's only the leader of Amatsukami on the other side, the three generations have no intention of taking the initiative to attack, because if the coalition army fights with Amatsukami at this time, it will only benefit the Akatsuki organization. At this time, Reikage took a step forward and shouted at Kuroto, "What? Do you want to fight with us? Do you still want to fight us? Well, let's see what you have." Unlike the three generations Naruto, 4 generations Lei-ing obviously didn't think so much. The Akatsuki had already retreated, but Nibi's Jinchuriki was still nowhere to be seen, which made him extremely anxious. Coupled with the fact that he was restrained by Hiriko just now, he had a belly full of anger, and now he wanted to vent out. Jiraiya quickly stopped 4 generations Lei-ing and whispered, "Lei-ing, Sama, please don't be impulsive. The natural energy of the opponent is very strong. It is likely that he is in some kind of sage mode. With my experience, ordinary ninjutsu and taijutsu won't have much effect on him at this time." Sage Fukasaku on Jiraiya's shoulder gently nodded and said with a solemn expression, "Well, little Jiraiya, Sama is right. The opponent can use sage jutsu on his own, and he can control such a large amount of natural energy. If I remember correctly, the last person who can do this is the Hashirama Senju of my village, Naruto Senju." Jishui, who was on the side, felt that something was wrong. Knowing the details and personality of Kuroto, he knows that there is no need for Kuroto to stay on the battlefield at this time. The fact that Kuroto is still on the battlefield at this time can only mean one thing. That is, something is wrong with Kuroto's body. Facing the coalition army, Hyojin didn't panic. He knew that at this time, he needed to be calm. After a little hesitation, he said, "Everyone, I want to talk to you on behalf of Amatsukami about a deal." He needed to find a reason for himself to stay on the battlefield, so he casually proposed a deal. He didn't think about whether this deal was feasible or not. He just wanted to delay for a while, because he already felt a familiar chakra. When the three generations heard this, a trace of surprise flashed on their faces, but it was fleeting, and they asked in a deep voice, "What deal?" Hyojin smiled. "It seems that your raid on the Akatsuki has failed, which means that you don't have the ability to annihilate the Akatsuki, so the deal I want to discuss with you is very simple. As long as you can afford it, Amatsukami will accept your request and assist you in annihilating the Akatsuki." The coalition army was puzzled when they heard this. They obviously didn't expect the leader of Amatsukami to throw out such a proposal. The three generations didn't agree, nor did they refuse. This kind of decision related to Mai's life and death is not something that can be decided by him alone. At this time, 2 figures descended from the sky and stood on both sides of Hyojin. It was Uchiha Itachi, who was wearing a black cloak and a flame-patterned mask, and Sandame Kazekage Puppet, who was also wearing a black cloak and a gale-patterned mask. Amatsukami's Homasubi and the mysterious magnetic release Kekai, Genkai. The eyes of the three generations narrowed, and they were secretly on guard. The other people on the coalition army side also had a solemn expression. Even the arrogant 4 generations Lei-ing was no exception. Because 4 generations Lei-ing had fought against this combination of Amatsukami before, at that time, he and Chalabi used the Bijou Beast to sneak attack them. but they didn't gain the slightest advantage. So Liang is very clear about the strength of these two members of Amitsukami. Hyojin smiled calmly and said, "The deal I just proposed, you can consider it carefully." After saying that, Hyojin waved his hand. Following Hyojin's signal, the Kazekage puppets of the three generations immediately urged the iron sand, which turned into a pair of huge black sand wings on their back, carrying Hyojin and Itachi into the air. Watching the three members of Amitsukami gradually disappear in the air, everyone on the ground, including the three generations Naruto, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Check the battlefield, search and rescue the survivors. The three generations quickly issued orders to the mine ninjas around them. Following the order of the three generations, the mine ninjas immediately dispersed, checking the battlefield, collecting information that may have been left by the Akatsuki organization, searching for survivors, and rescuing the wounded. At this time, four generations Liang also ordered the Kumo ninjas around him, search carefully, even if you have to dig out the entire rain village. Find the Yujito ni. Listening to the roar of the four generations Liang, Jiraiya sighed softly. Kumo, who has always been tyrannical in the shinobi world, suffered a big loss this time. If they can't rescue the Yujito ni in the end, then Kumo will lose more than just a perfect Jinchuriki. In fact, the loss of a Jinchuriki won't hurt the village too much. After all, it's not too difficult to select a barely qualified Jinchuriki for the village. After all, it's not too difficult for the village to select a barely qualified Jinchuriki. But the loss of the tail beast is really a big blow. Even a strong shinobi village like Kumo can't bear it. From Jiraiya's point of view, since the Akatsuki knew about the Allied forces' raid in advance, it's very likely that they have already transferred the captured Yujito ni in advance. Therefore, Kumo's hope of finding the Yujito ni in the rain village is very slim. Coming to the side of the three generations, Jiraiya asked, "Sensei, where are the others?" The Mayambu who followed the three generations previously had more than 10 squads and more than 40 people. But now, including the three members of the team, 11, there are only a dozen people in the field. Therefore, Jiraiya couldn't help but ask. The three generations shook their heads sadly. Jiraiya was startled for a moment, and then asked in doubt, "How could the loss be so big with you here?" At this time, the three generations' face suddenly turned red, and they coughed a few times. Seeing three generations' fingers covering their mouths, Jiraiya hurriedly asked, "Sensei, are you injured? Don't make a sound." After a pause, the three generations calmed their breathing and said in a low voice, "Do you remember the Akatsuki member wearing the one-eyed vortex mask just now?" Jiraiya nodded again and again. The strange way in which Obsidian appeared was still fresh in his memory. The three generations said with a gloomy face, "He not only mastered a strange space-time ninjutsu, but he also has the Hashirama Kekkei Genkai." What? Jiraiya was really shocked, as he was influenced by the heroic deeds of Hashirama Kekkei since he was a child. Wood release is a very sacred thing in his eyes. It can almost be regarded as the symbol of the My Village's Kekkei Genkai. It's really hard for him to imagine that a member of the Akatsuki, who is bent on subverting the order of the shinobi world, would have this kind of Kekkei Genkai. After recovering from his shock, Jiraiya asked the three generations, "Who is he?" The three generations shook his head and said, "When we fought, I tried to probe him several times, but he was obviously aware of my intentions and deliberately used the taijutsu and throwing skills of the Uchiha clan. As a renowned ninjutsu doctor in the shinobi world, the three generations can see a lot of important information that others can't pay attention to. However, because Obsidian kidnapped Naruto and framed Jishuei with the intention of provoking internal strife between the village and the Uchiha clan, the three generations subconsciously ruled out the possibility that Obsidian is a member of the Uchiha clan. So when he fought with Obsidian, the Uchiha style that Obsidian showed in the battle was all misunderstood by the three generations as Obsidian's intentional action. Jiraiya guessed, "Is he a member of the Senju clan?" The three generations said solemnly, It is also possible that he transplanted the cells of Hashirama. Didn't the previous transplantation experiments of the Konoha clan all fail? After a pause, Jiraiya said to himself, "Even my clan can't do it. How can they?" Halfway through his words, Jiraiya also stopped, because he remembered that Hiriko's face had changed beyond recognition, and that Hiriko didn't even greet him. Hiriko even developed the Chimera technique, a forbidden technique that could devour the Kekkei Genkai, so successful transplantation of the cells of Hashirama clan doesn't seem to be impossible. Jiraiya said, "We must inform Tsunade Kagura of this matter." The three generations also nodded. As the descendant of the bloodline of Hashirama clan, Tsunade Kagura is indeed qualified to know about the reappearance of wood release in the shinobi world, and perhaps she can use this matter to persuade Tsunade Kagura to return to the Mai clan. On the other side, Kakashi pressed his hands on the ground and shouted, "Summoning technique!" Bang! After a burst of white smoke, a shinobi of different sizes appeared in front of him. At this time, Kakashi said to the shinobi, "Please help me look for Kuin. He is probably buried under these ruins." Hyjin? Puck stuck out his tongue and said with some embarrassment, "That guy always likes to hide his smell. Even if it's us, it will be very difficult to find him." Kakashi had no choice but to say, "Please." Parker looked around and said, "There are ruins everywhere. Which ruins is he under exactly?" Hearing this, Kakashi looked at Jishui on the side. Jishui had no choice but to vaguely point at the ruins of the tower where Hyojin was before and said, "It seems to be over there." Just when the members of Team 11 were trying to search for Hyojin in the ruins, in the sky, Hyojin said to Itachi, "It's not appropriate for me to show up now. You disguise yourself as me and sneak into the hidden rain village to meet up with Jishui." Itachi asked with some concern, "Kuroto-san, is your body okay?" Although the Sharingan doesn't have the ability to overdraw, Itachi can sense that there is a big problem with Hyojin's body just by feeling it. Hyojin said calmly, "It's not a big problem. I can solve it myself. But I need you to pretend to be me for a while." Shapeshifting jutsu is indeed the foundation of a ninja, and most ninjas can use it. But if you want to hide from strong people like Naruto and Jiraiya of the three generations, it's not something that can be done by just anyone. In the village, those who can use shape-shifting jutsu to disguise as Hyojin and hide for Naruto of the three generations are probably only a few people like Jishui and Itachi who have the Manjikyu Sharingan and can see through all the details. Itachi no longer said anything and immediately jumped down from the Kazekage puppets of the three generations. Itachi can't fly at high altitudes, but it's not difficult for him to land from high altitudes, so there's no need for the Kazekage puppets of the three generations to risk landing. After Itachi left, Hyojin pondered for a while and immediately ordered the Kazekage puppets of the three generations to slightly change their direction. Like Jiraiya and others, Hyojin is also very curious about what is going on with the Sand Crypsis. How can there be no trace of a ninja from the Sand Crypsis after such a big battle? Following Hyojin's orders, the Kazekage puppets of the three generations flew towards the attack area that the Sand Crypsis is responsible for. At high altitude, Hyojin barely opened his Byakugan and scanned the ground. He saw that the ground was full of potholes. Corpses were scattered everywhere, blood and rain intertwined, dyeing the puddles on the ground into a light red color. It seems that the Sand Crypsis has also been blocked. As soon as he finished sighing, Hyojin found a familiar figure. That person was none other than the four generations of Kazekage of the Sand Crypsis. But at the moment, the four generations of Kazekage was very miserable. His left arm was missing, lying in the puddle. Whether he was alive or dead was unknown. Not far from Yondaime Kazekage, there was another sturdy fat man lying on the ground. The fat man was dressed as a mist ninja. He was also lying on the ground covered in blood, and beside him was a large sword that seemed to be made out of shark skin. Opening his field of vision, Hyojin then found that there was a mist ninja who was limping further away, as if he was seriously injured and was slowly moving away from the distance. Chapter 366. Hyojin's expression changed. Is it the Jinchuriki of the Mist Village? The Mist Ninja who is limping and trying to leave the battlefield obviously has a huge chakra in his body. This is something that Hyojin's Byakugan only needs to glance at. As one of the 5 great shinobi villages, the Mist Village has a total of 2 Jinchuriki, the 3-tailed Jinchuriki Yagura and the 6-tailed Jinchuriki Yagura. The Mist Ninja in Hyojin's vision is obviously not the Mist Village's 4 generations Mizuki Yagura, which means that his identity is undoubtedly the other Jinchuriki of the Mist Village, Yagura. The one who blocked the Sancrypsis Brigade outside the Rain Village turned out to be a Mist Ninja, and the Mist Village even sent out their Jinchuriki. Sitting cross-legged on the back of the 3 generations Kazekage puppet, Hyojin's face gradually became gloomy. He guessed that the Sancrypsis Brigade must have been blocked, which is why they couldn't break into the Rain Village in time. But he didn't expect that the one who blocked the Sancrypsis Brigade would be a Mist Ninja. According to common sense, the Mist Village, which has just quelled the rebellion of the Kekiai clan, has many things to do, and it is impossible for them to take the risk of offending the 3 great shinobi villages of Mai, Cloud, and Sancrypsis at the same time to assist the Akatsuki organization. Unless, rubbing his chin, Hyojin thought of a possibility. In the original story, after the Mist Village's 4 generations Mizuki Jigura was defeated by Itachi's Amaterasu, he fell into the hands of Obsidian and became a puppet controlled by Obsidian's Jinjutsu. In this story, although Itachi did not join the Akatsuki organization, but with the infiltration of the Mist Village by Uchiha Madara for more than 10 years, and the strength of the Akatsuki organization, it is not impossible for Obsidian to secretly attack the 4 generations Mizukage and turn him into a plaything in his hands. At this thought, Hyojin lightly spat on the ground. TSK, I forgot about the Mist Village card. Hyojin didn't expect that the Akatsuki would use the Mist Village's power so blatantly, nor did he expect that the Mist Village would be able to stop the Sancrypsis Brigade and even seriously injure the 4 generations of Kazekage of the Sancrypsis. In fact, the foundation of the Mist Village isn't something an ordinary shinobi village can compare to. After being infiltrated by Madara Uchiha for more than 10 years, and after more than 10 years of internal strife, they experienced the largest rebellion of the Kekiai clan in the history of the Mist Village. The powerful Kekiai clan in the village were exterminated one after another, and the village's combat power was reduced by 70 to 80%. But even so, the temporary transfer of some of the manpower by the Obsidian was able to block the Sancrypsis Brigade, which shows the depth of the Mist Village. After shifting his gaze to the great swordsman muscle that was left on the battlefield, Hyojin pondered for a while and finally shook his head. At this time, Hyojin has completely lost his combat power, and more than half of his body has fallen into numbness, and the battlefield below is full of unpredictable dangers. At this time, it is not a wise thing to take risks for a mere great swordsman muscle. What's more, a great swordsman muscle like the great swordsman muscle doesn't match his combat style, and even if he gets his hands on it, he will most likely focus on studying it. As for the 6-tailed Jinchuriki Uchiha who fled the battlefield, Hyojin didn't pay attention to him. Although this is the best time to subdue Uchiha, but judging from the strength of Uchiha, who defeated the 4 generations of Kazekage, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets around him may not be the opponent of the 6-tailed Jinchuriki. After restraining his greed, Hyojin no longer hesitated and immediately ordered the 3 generations Kazekage puppets to leave the battlefield. At the same time, on the battlefield, a figure was galloping in the rain. This person is none other than the ghost man Zabuza of the Mist Four. In the previous fight, Zabuza was facing the captain of the Sancrypsis team, Burning Release Kekiai Genkai, Pakura. In the environment of the Hidden Rain Village, the Burning Release Kekiai Genkai is greatly restrained, and both Zabuza and Ghostman are elites who are proficient in the Mist Assassination Jutsu. So when the Burning Release meets the Water Release Ninjutsu, it becomes their natural home field, so the two of them easily block Pakura. However, Zabuza's mind is not on the Sancrypsis team. so he looked for an opportunity to leave the battlefield alone. After a while, Zabuza arrived at the place where Watermelon Mountain and Uchiha joined hands to deal with the 4 generations of Kazekage. Squatting beside the seriously injured and unconscious Watermelon Mountain, Zabuza grinned and said, "Humph, to actually fight with the Kazekage to this point. What a complete idiot." After saying that, he stabbed Watermelon Mountain's pufferfish demon's neck with his sword, ending the unconscious boss. Then he came to the great swordsman, picked it up and played with it for a while, and said with a smile, "From now on, this great swordsman belongs to me, Ghostman Zabuza." Then he glanced at the dead Watermelon Mountain pufferfish ghost, and Zabuza's eyes burned with ambition. The abnormality of the Mizukage in the village has been noticed by many mist ninjas, and Zabuza is no exception. So in his view, this is the best time to overthrow the 4 generations of Kazekage and seize the Mizukage throne. Therefore, he didn't care about the Mizukage's task at all. After tying the great swordsman to his back, Zabuza didn't even look at the injured and unconscious 4 generations of Kazekage, and quickly disappeared from the battlefield. On the other side, Jiraiya was ordered by the 3 generations of Kazekage to leave the Rain Village with a team of my Umbu to meet the San Crypsis Brigade outside the village. But when Jiraiya arrived at the battlefield, there were broken corpses of the San Crypsis ninjas everywhere. After finding a few injured people, Jiraiya quickly asked, "Where are your Kazekage and Elder Chiyo?" The injured San Crypsis ninja pointed to the distance. Elder Chiyo and Sasori are fighting in that direction. Kazekage and Umbu are intercepted by the Mist ninjas. Mist Village? Jiraiya frowned and asked again, "Then who is fighting with you?" The San Crypsis ninja slowly said, "Kakuzu of the Takunin village. He is a monster." Mist Village, Sasori, Kakuzu. Jiraiya shook his head and said with emotion, "No wonder the San Crypsis Brigade couldn't break into the Rain Village." After sighing with emotion, Jiraiya didn't dare to delay and immediately rushed to the area where Chiyo and Sasori were fighting. After arriving, Jiraiya and the several my Umbu beside him sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. Everywhere they looked were full of potholes from the explosion. The scale was so large and the scope was so wide that it was as if 2 ninjas of more than 100 people had fought fiercely. Walking among the countless puppet wreckage, Jiraiya was amazed. I didn't expect the confrontation between puppet masters to be so fierce. At this time, Senran Fukasaku, who was on Jiraiya's shoulder, pointed to a pothole in the distance and said, "Little Jiraiya, go and have a look. There seems to be a life aura over there." Jiraiya nodded and immediately came to the side of the pothole with a vigilant look. He found that the one lying in this pothole was the advisory elder of the San Crypsis Brigade, Chiyo. After checking Chiyo's injury, Jiraiya found that although Chiyo didn't suffer any fatal injuries, her body was poisoned by a very strange poison, which is the reason why she was unconscious. Just when Jiraiya found Chiyo, Pakura, who barely repelled the ghost mermaid, also found the injured 4 generations of Kazekage. Not long after, the San Crypsis Brigade gathered together and followed Jiraiya into the Hidden Rain Village. Before they entered the temporary command center, they heard Lei Ying's angry roar from the command center. Jiraiya explained to the 4 generations of Kazekage on the side. The raid failed, the Akatsuki organization all retreated, there's no news of Yuki Ni, so Mr. Lei Ying is inevitably a little. Without waiting for Jiraiya to finish his words, the injured 4 generations of Kazekage said gloomily, "I can't understand. For a ninja who needs to make hand seals to use ninjutsu, a broken arm can be said to be a fatal blow. So the mood of the 4 generations of Kazekage is actually worse than that of the 4 generations Lei Ying." When Yondaime Kazekage fought against Watermelon Mountain and Yu Gao of the Mist Village, Yondaime Kazekage's victory was already in his grasp, but he didn't expect Yu Gao's speed to be so fast after transforming into a tailed beast. In just an instant, Yu Gao broke through his golden sand defense, and he didn't even have time to react before Yu Gao easily tore off his left arm. Soon, several high-level leaders of the San Crypsis Brigade entered the temporary command center. Seeing that the 4 generations of Kazekage lost his arm, the 3 generations and 4 generations Laying were also quite surprised. After learning that the Mist Village actually intervened and worked for the Akatsuki organization, Laying was furious and immediately threatened to attack the country of water. The 3 generations of Kazekage sighed and persuaded the 4 generations Laying. The Akatsuki organization may return at any time. It is too dangerous for us to stay here. Let's leave here first. Laying angrily said, "What about Yuki-ni? I will never leave until I find Yuki-ni." The 3 generations of Kazekage said, "Judging from the current situation, Yuki-ni should not be in the Rain Village. There are many ninjas in the Alliance who are good at perception. During this period of time, they have searched the entire Rain Village, but they didn't find any trace of Yuki-ni." The San Crypsis suffered heavy losses this time, and they also lost a lot of face. So the 4 generations of Kazekage also didn't want to stay here for a long time, so he agreed. "Yes, even if we take the risk to stay here, it is meaningless. It is better to wait until we collect enough information in the future and then formulate the corresponding rescue operation." Pakura, who was next to the 4 generations of Kazekage, also said, "Our operation this time is too reckless. The strength of the Akatsuki organization is far stronger than what the intelligence described, and they also have the Mist Village as a strong support. These are all things we didn't know before." The 4 generations of Kazekage heard the accusation in the other party's words, so he said, "This operation was proposed by our Mai, and our Mai will give a certain degree of compensation for your losses. At this time, it is even more important to firmly win over Cloud and San Crypsis. So the 3 generations of Kazekage is very decisive and directly propose compensation. Moreover, Cloud and San Crypsis have indeed suffered heavy losses. Cloud lost their Jinchuriki and Tail Beast. Even the leader of San Crypsis, Kazekage, lost an arm, and Chio was poisoned and unconscious. With that said, the 3 generations of Kazekage said to Jiraiya, "Find Tsunade as soon as possible. I am afraid that only she can remove the poison from Chiyo's body." On Hyojin's side, after a few hours of flying at full speed regardless of the consumption of chakra, Hyojin and the 3 generations Kazekage puppets finally returned to the Sky Fortress located in the desert of the Land of Wind. Inside the fortress, Gaara and Xianglin hurriedly came up to greet Suijin. Looking at the pale and staggering Suijin, they asked anxiously, "Sama, what happened to you?" Hyojin shook his head and said with a slight smile, "It's nothing. You go back to your room first. Don't worry about me." After sending away Gaara and Xianglin, Hyojin went to his lounge while leaning on the wall. Tearing off his robe, Kuroto checked his body slightly and found that the petrification of his body this time is much more serious than the last time. But because of the previous experience, he basically controlled the petrification area in his limbs, so the organs of his body were not affected, and it did not hinder his body's continuous recovery of Tenseigan chakra. It seems that it will take at least a month to completely remove the accumulated nature energy in my body. After a pause, Hyojin sighed with emotion. "It's a pity that I don't have a way to learn Senjutsu. It's obviously a good thing, but it has become a disaster for me." Although he can't use this nature energy, Hyojin clearly knows the value of this nature energy. After all, even the divine tree absorbed the nature energy in the earth vein to give birth to the chakra fruit that was swallowed by Otsutsuki Kagaya, allowing him to break through to Kekkei Genkai in one fell swoop. After calming his mind, Hyojin sat on the bed and sorted out the gains and losses of this raid. In fact, the harvest of this raid is not much, but the biggest harvest is that the strength of the Akatsuki has been completely exposed, making everyone in the shinobi world understand that the Akatsuki is not just a traitorous shinobi organization, but a terrorist organization that is strong enough to suppress the 3 great shinobi villages of Mai, Kyomo, and San Crypsis. As for the losses of this operation, it's quite a lot. Even if we don't mention the losses of the 3 great shinobi villages, just the losses of Hyojin's own forces are not small. the biggest of which is the leakage of his Tenseigan combat information, as well as the excessive exhaustion of Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan. Do not underestimate the leakage of information, unless you have the strength to crush the shinobi world. Otherwise, once your combat information is leaked, you will inevitably be targeted in various ways. And Hyojin knows that his true strength is far from being able to crush the shinobi world. Fortunately, Hyojin's true identity has not been exposed, so there is no need to worry about the Obsidian Sharingan attacking Yuki and his friends and family. As for the exhaustion of Jishui's pupil power, Hyojin clearly saw at the time, and although he can't accurately predict to what extent Jishui's eyesight has declined, he knows that Jishui's Sharingan is not far from losing his sight. In addition, there's another thing that makes Hyojin very concerned. That is, Nagato actually accepted White Zetsu's proposal and stood up again with the help of White Zetsu's clone. One must know that Nagato has always maintained a high level of vigilance against Obsidian Sharingan. This can be seen from the 600 billion detonation talismans prepared by Conan for Obsidian Sharingan. And this time, Nagato accepted Sharingan's help, which made Hyojin realize a possibility. That is, if Nagato absorbs the cells of Hashirama, what kind of changes will he undergo? Chapter 367. Whether it is in the original universe or this universe, the Akatsuki organization is not a monolithic organization. There is a great estrangement between the two cores of the organization, Nagato and Obsidian. They are always on guard against each other, which makes the Akatsuki organization divided into Nagato faction and Obsidian faction. It is precisely because of this estrangement that Nagato has been controlling the external path golem, preferring to provide himself as a sacrifice to the external path golem rather than letting Obsidian intervene in the matter of the external path golem. Similarly, Obsidian has been hiding many powerful forbidden techniques, secret techniques, and various biotechnology related to the Hashirama that he inherited from Uchiha Madara and did not share them with Nagato. In the original time and space, this barrier continued until Nagato died in Konoha village, and it didn't disappear. Because both Nagato and Obsidian are arrogant and disregard others as nothing. One of them claims to be a deity and tries to suppress the entire shinobi world with his own strength and establish a perpetual and peaceful shinobi world, while the other is self-centered and ignores the will of others, trying to create a brand new dream world with the Eye of the Moon project and seek peace in that illusory dream. Without strong external pressure, it was impossible for these two people to compromise with each other. However, this time, the raid of my village, Kumo village, and San Crypsis village, as well as the strong intervention of Hyojin on behalf of Amitsukami, made the Akatsuki organization feel an unprecedented sense of crisis, which forced Nagato and Obsidian to put down their estrangement. Can Nagato successfully absorb the Hashirama cells? This question lingered in Hyojin's mind. Kuroto carefully analyzed the few people in the shinobi world who have successfully transplanted Hashirama cells and found an objective rule. Except for Yamato, who had a small probability of success in the Orochimaru experiment, all the other people who have successfully transplanted Hashirama cells seem to be related to Uchiha Sharingan. For example, the first Uchiha Madara who successfully transplanted the first generation of cells is an Uchiha with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. After successfully transplanting the Hashirama cells, Uchiha Madara not only obtained the unique Hashirama Kekkei Genkai, but also successfully evolved his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into Rinnegan when he was old and dying. The second person who successfully transplanted the primary generation cells is also an Uchiha clansman. He is the Uchiha Obsidian of the Akatsuki organization. Perhaps because Obsidian Sharingan is only a Manjikyu Sharingan, or because Obsidian only has one Sharingan, or because Obsidian's pupil power is not enough, and he lacks Indra Chakra. In short, after the successful transplanting of the Hashirama cells, although Obsidian also gained a strong vitality, inexhaustible pupil power, and even the unique Hashirama Kekkei Genkai, the harvest is not as big as Uchiha Madara, and the Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket has no sign of evolving into Rinnegan. The third person who successfully transplanted the Hashirama cells is Danzo Shimura, the leader of the Mai clan. Although he is not an Uchiha clansman, the key to his body being able to control the Hashirama cells is still the Sharingan. But because he is not an Uchiha clansman, he needs more Sharingan to balance the erosion of the Hashirama cells on his body. This is also the reason why, when he used the Izanagi Forbidden Technique to fight with Sasuke in the original time and space, after consuming the Sharingan on his arm, the Hashirama cells immediately backfired and almost turned his body into a tree. If it weren't for the fact that he still has Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket, allowing him to barely suppress the backfire of the Hashirama cells, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to use the four-symbol seal. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, Nagato has a sage body that is not inferior to the Senjutsu clan, plus he transplanted the Rinnegan, which is far more powerful than the Manjikyu Sharingan. Thinking of this, Hyojin came to a conclusion. If there is anyone in the shinobi world who transplanted the Hashirama cells with the least risk, I am afraid that it is Nagato without a doubt. After all, the Rinnegan contains both Indra Chakra and Ajura Chakra. Suppressing the Hashirama cells is simply a matter of course. Hyojin curled his lips. It's a pity that I couldn't kill Nagato before. The Uzumaki clan and the Senjutsu clan are distant relatives, and the two clans share the same origin. If traced back to the source, it can be traced back to the Sage of Six Paths in the mythological era. There is no doubt about this. Because of this, when the Senjutsu clan didn't have a suitable candidate to possess, the reincarnation of Ajura chose to possess the body of Uzumaki Naruto of the Uzumaki clan. The body of the Uzumaki clan has a strong vitality, huge chakra, and all kinds of miraculous natural seals, so they're the best candidates for Jinchuriki in the shinobi world. The previous generations of Jinchuriki of my village were all members of the Uzumaki clan. The body of the Senjutsu clan also has a strong vitality, huge chakra, and a special affinity with the divine tree. If a ninja of the Senjutsu clan can simultaneously complete the Yang chakra, water chakra, and earth chakra, then the fusion of these three attributes of chakra, they will have the ability to use the wood release Kekkei Genkai. And without the Yang chakra of the Senjutsu clan, even if others can achieve the fusion of water chakra and earth chakra, the Kekkei Genkai obtained will be the lava release Kekkei Genkai, not the wood release Kekkei Genkai. In other words, if one wants to use the wood release Kekkei Genkai, one either has the bloodline of the Senjutsu clan or transplants the Hashirama cells. If one wants to rely solely on the fusion of water chakra and earth chakra, then it is impossible to master the wood release Kekkei Genkai under normal circumstances. Therefore, as a member of the Uzumaki clan, if Nagato transplants the Hashirama cells and obtains the body of the Senjutsu of the Senjutsu clan and fuses the Yang chakra of the Senjutsu clan, then he will have the ability to suppress the tailed beasts and have an affinity with the divine tree. In this way, not only will he be able to use the wood release Kekkei Genkai to restrain the tailed beasts, but he will also be able to control the outer path golem, which is another form of the divine tree. Therefore, if the Senjutsu clan and the Uzumaki clan Senjutsu body are fused together, the result will be the Senjutsu body that is closest to the Sage of the Six Paths, almost comparable to the Otsutsuki Ajura, who directly inherited the Sage of the Six Paths. After collecting his thoughts, Hyojin no longer thought about Nagato. No matter what kind of Senjutsu body Nagato will eventually obtain under Hyojin's blood chain net plan, there is not much meaning. As long as Hyojin can successfully complete his blood chain net plan and fuse the Yin-Yang 5-element chakra with the 7 attributes, then even if it is Otsutsuki Kagaya, he will still have the power to fight, so there is no need to be too afraid of Nagato. Right now, Hyojin's only enemy is nothing else but time. But after the previous analysis, he had an idea. If Jishui's eyesight really declines seriously to the point of blindness, then trying to let Jishui transplant the cells of the first generation is also an option. After all, if Uchiha Madara can do it, Uchiha Obsidian can do it, even Danzo can do it, there is no reason why Jishui, who has the blood of Uchiha, and a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan can't do it. Of course, Hyojin will not hide the risks from Jishui, and the final choice depends on Jishui's own attitude. In the Rain Village, while the coalition forces were busy evacuating, Itachi, who turned into Hyojin, quietly sneaked in and hid under a ruin. As members of Amitsukami, Jishui and Itachi have a lot of private communication. From Jishui, Itachi learned that most of the tasks Jishui performs in the organization are not assassinations, raids, and the like, but to disguise as Hyojin and cover for Hyojin. Therefore, Itachi also asked Jishui for advice on how to disguise and the various precautions when disguising. Because of these private basic skills, Itachi easily completed the disguise task, deliberately being found by Class 11 from under the ruins, and under the cover of Jishui, he smoothly integrated into Class 11. But what Itachi didn't expect was that when they evacuated, 3 Generations Naruto called him to his side and asked him if he had seen a member of the Akatsuki wearing a one-eyed vortex mask. Obviously, 3 Generations hoped to use Hyojin's Byakugan to learn the true identity of Obsidian. Itachi, who didn't know anything, could only shake his head. 3 Generations was a little disappointed, but he didn't blame Itachi for pretending to be Hyojin because the strength of the Akatsuki is far beyond his expectations. In his opinion, it's already praiseworthy that Hyojin was able to keep his life. It didn't take long for the coalition forces to evacuate the Land of Rain. After returning to the Land of Fire, the 3 Kage discussed in secret for a long time, and then 4 generations late, Ing and 4 generations of Kazekage left the Land of Fire with their remaining subordinates and returned to their respective villages. Jiraiya took the poisoned Elder Chiyo and several Sand Crypsis ninjas and once again embarked on the journey to find Tsunade. As the 3 Kage returned to their respective villages, the joint operation of Mai, Kyumo, and Sand Crypsis against the Akatsuki was announced to the public. The first to bear the brunt was naturally the 3 great shinobi villages of Mai, Kyumo, and Sand Crypsis. When they learned that 3 Generations led the elite Umbu to join forces with Kyumo and Sand Crypsis to launch a surprise attack against the Akatsuki, Mai's Council of Elders expressed strong protests, and Danzo angrily questioned 3 Generations why the raid was hidden from them. Facing the anger of the Council of Elders, 3 Generations was speechless. The heavy losses of the Umbu caused 3 Generations' control over the village to fall to the lowest point. Coupled with the loss of prestige brought about by the failure of the raid, it made it impossible for him to face the Council of Elders. Fortunately, the Council of Elders, Zhuan Shao, Chun, and Maido Kimenhamura, are old acquaintances of 3 Generations, and after experiencing the initial anger, they didn't continue to pressure the 3 Generations. Under Danzo S, but there's also a pile of shit. The fact that he and Hanzo joined hands to plot against the former leader of the Akatsuki, Yahiko, can't stand up to investigation. The current state of the Akatsuki is directly related to him, so after venting his anger, he also restrained himself. Taking a deep breath from his pipe, 3 Generations said with a tired expression, "I underestimated the enemy too much this time." Zhuan Shaochun frowned. Haizen Yu, Lei Ying, and Kazekage joined hands, and yet you still couldn't deal with the Akatsuki? Can a mere renegade shinobi organization stop the 3 of you? With the establishment of the shinobi village system in the past few decades, the top 5 shinobi villages have developed the habit of only treating each other as equal enemies and not putting other small shinobi villages or organizations in their eyes. Therefore, when Zhuan Shaochun learned that the joint raid of Mai, Kyumo, and Sand Crypsis failed, his first reaction was to feel that it was ridiculous. 3 Generations nodded and explained the process of the raid in detail. Only omitting Obsidians would release Kekkei Genkai. Danzo's eyes flickered after listening to the story, and he asked, "Hiriko was able to defeat Laying by himself?" 3 Generations nodded. Yes, in fact, Hiriko had the upper hand. Hiriko's Sharingan, Hakushin, Steel Release, and so on are all Kekkei Genkai. After he successfully fused with these Kekkei Genkai, he can easily use them without putting too much burden on his body. On the contrary, 4 generations Lei Ying's lightning release chakra mode is a high-level method of using lightning release, more like a secret technique. And if 4 generations Lei Ying wants to keep up with the strange speed of Hiriko's Hakushin and resist the absorption of Hiriko's Hell release chakra mode, he would have to use the lightning release chakra mode with all his strength and bear a great burden on his body. Therefore, as long as 4 generations Lei Ying can't quickly deal with Hiriko, then the longer the battle drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for 4 generations Lei Ying. Hamura pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said in a deep voice, "Since we can't defeat Hiriko, then perhaps we can take advantage of the conflict between Tsukimi and Akatsuki." 3 generations nodded in agreement. He is currently thinking about how to use Tsukimi to deal with Akatsuki. At this time, Danzo also suggested, "We can no longer treat Akatsuki as an ordinary traitorous organization. We should gather the strength of the entire village and strike them with a thunderous blow." 3 generations said, "I've already notified everyone. A Jonin council meeting will be held soon." Danzo sneered and said, "After the end of the Third Shinobi World War, many ninjas from noble families in the village chose to retire, leaving us with a shortage of manpower. Heizen, this time, you should be more forceful and let these retired ninjas come out and continue to serve the village." "Yes." Zhuan Shaochun and Hamura also agreed in unison. As the advisory elders, they can naturally see what Danzo is planning. But weakening the noble families in the village and supporting the civilian ninjas has always been the stance of the Naruto faction, and both of them are happy to see it happen. Moreover, the village is indeed short of manpower at the moment. This is a fact, not a random excuse. After a moment of silence, 3 generations also nodded. Just when Danzo was secretly feeling proud of himself, 3 generations suddenly looked at him and asked with a cold expression, "What are you hiding from me about the first gen cell transplantation experiment?" Chapter 368. The guilty Danzo avoided the sharp eyes of 3 generations. Danzo has been hiding the Hashirama cell transplantation experiment from Sandaime-sama and the entire village. Even after Orochimaru's defection, the experiment was not stopped. Therefore, in the face of 3 generations' sudden questioning, Danzo found it difficult to resist. Zhuan Shaochun on the side asked, "Heizen, what happened?" 3 generations said with a dignified look, "In this raid, I met a mysterious ninja who can use the wood release Kekii limit." 3 generations had a lot of speculations about the identity of Obsidian. In his opinion, the possibility of Obsidian being a ninja who successfully transplanted the first generation cell is the highest. The possibility of him being a member of the Senju clan is very low, because even among the Senju clan, only the first generation Naruto Hashirama can master the wood release Kekii limit. Even the second generation Naruto Hashirama can't use the wood release Kekii limit. It can be seen that the wood release Kekii limit is not an ordinary bloodline inheritance. Would release Kekii limit? In the next moment, Koharu and Hamura were taken aback, and their thoughts flashed. Danzo said with a gloomy face, "I failed to supervise, and Orochimaru took advantage of the loophole." 3 generations didn't speak, and their eyes were still staring at Danzo. Seeing that Sandaime wouldn't let go, Danzo had no choice but to say, before Orochimaru defected, he had been carrying out the Hashirama cell transplantation experiment behind my back, and he had successfully fused with the Hashirama cells. What? Zhuan Shaochun and Hamura were shocked and directly stood up from the sofa. Sandaime-sama's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. 3 generations were just a little suspicious, because the root of Danzo is completely independent of his control. Many of the actions of the root, as Naruto, he didn't know, so he was worried that the mysterious Obsidian may have gotten the first generation cell from the village, or the technology related to the first generation cell transplant from the village. He never thought that when he asked, Danzo actually hid it from him and secretly carried out the Hashirama cell transplantation experiment, and even got a child who successfully fused with the Hashirama cell. After suppressing the anger, 3 generations took a deep breath and asked, "Where is the child?" Danzo shook his head. "He was taken away by Orochimaru." 3 generations immediately said, "I want all the information about that child." There is no doubt that 3 generations mistakenly thought that the child taken away by Orochimaru is Obsidian. After all, Orochimaru was also a member of the Akatsuki, and the Allied forces didn't know that Orochimaru had already betrayed the Akatsuki. So it is very reasonable that the child taken away by Orochimaru became a member of the Akatsuki. Seeing that the matter has been exposed, Danzo, no longer concealed, and directly handed over the information about Yamato to 3 generations. After receiving the relevant information, 3 generations indifferently said, "Danzo, you violated the rules of the village and secretly carried out the forbidden experiment. I punish you in the name of Naruto. From now on, the root is completely disbanded, and all the root members are under the unified command of the Umbu." Danzo angrily said, "Hizen, that is Orochimaru." Not waiting for Danzo to finish his words, 3 generations waved his hand, "Put away these tricks." Shifting all the blame to Orochimaru, who has long since defected, Shimura Danzo obviously won't be able to fool Sandame, who has already made up his mind. Zhuan Xiaochun and Mito Hamura glanced at each other, and finally chose to remain silent. If it was any other time, Koharu and Hamura would have objected, but now that the village is facing a great threat, and Shimura Danzo has committed a serious crime, and Sandame has taken back his power, they have nothing to say. After leaving Naruto's office with a cold face, Danzo immediately returned to the root base. In a secret laboratory in the deepest part of the base, Danzo eagerly asked a researcher who was working, "How is the experiment going?" The researcher replied, "Danzo-sama, after our experiments, we found that the Sharingan does have the ability to suppress the Hashirama cells. As long as there are enough Sharingan, the success rate of Hashirama cell transplantation will be greatly improved. But what?" Danzo's face became cold, and his chakra broke out. Facing the pressure of Danzo, the researcher wiped the sweat on his forehead. But the balance between the two needs to be further tested. The data we have is far from enough. Bang! Danzo slammed the cane in his hand on the floor and said, "There is no time. If you can't complete the transplantation experiment within a week, you and your family will all disappear." After saying that, Danzo left the secret laboratory without looking back. After the figure of Danzo disappeared from the laboratory, the researcher fell to the ground with a pale face. For a transplant experiment of this level, a week is simply not enough time. After leaving the laboratory, Danzo walked around the root base with a strange smile on his face. "Hizen, you are getting old." As the closest comrade in arms of the 3 generations, Danzo has become more and more aware of the physical weakness of the 3 generations, and this is especially obvious when it comes to the chakra's amount. Therefore, Danzo pinned his hopes on the Hashirama cells, because only by successfully transplanting the Hashirama cells can he maintain his peak state and replace the 3 generations to become the next Naruto. And only by successfully transplanting the Hashirama cells, the Sharingan that he hastily transplanted before can really come in handy, unlike now, where they're sealed most of the time. As for the dissolution of the root base, Danzo is not too worried about it. The root base has been in Danzo's hands for so many years, and it has long been under his control. Although the 3 generations want to take back the power, as long as he doesn't take the initiative to relinquish it, just the problem of accepting it can make the 2 sides struggle for a long time. And during this time, Danzo will have enough time to transfer the core secrets and elite personnel of the root base to rebuild the root base. After resting in the Sky Fortress for 2 days, barely containing the invasion of natural energy, Hyojin left the Sky Fortress and quietly returned to the village. Using the ninja crow communication device, Hyojin contacted Itachi, who was disguised as him. Then he and Itachi went to my hospital together. Because he wanted to disguise himself as Hyojin, Itachi pretended to injure himself in the Rain Village. Therefore, On the surface, Hyojin, who returned from the rain village, should be injured, and Hyojin, whose body was partially petrified, should also be injured. Therefore, he can go to the hospital, complete the registration in the hospital, confirm his injury, and then apply for a period of leave from the 3 generations to recuperate. Coming to a single room, Hyojin glanced at the medical ninja in front of him and immediately removed the bandages wrapped around his arms. As the bandages were removed one by one, Suijin's petrified arms were gradually revealed. There was no color of flesh on them, but he didn't care too much about it and said to the medical ninja in front of him, "My arms and legs are injured and bleeding nonstop. I need to bandage them." At this moment, Itachi's ink-black eyes suddenly turned scarlet, and the 3 Magatama began to slowly revolve. "Yes, your arm is injured, bleeding. I will bandage it for you immediately." Suijin's exposed arm was obviously gray, and there was no trace of blood on it. But the medic ninja with dull eyes was still repeating Suijin's words while recording them in the medical book. Hyojin continued to smile and said, "My injury needs at least 3 weeks of vacation." The medical ninja nodded and said, "Your injury needs 3 weeks of vacation." Kuroto said lightly, "Let's start bandaging." The medical ninja stopped writing and immediately rebandaged Hyojin's limbs. After Kuroto left with Itachi's help, the medical ninja who sat back to his original position was startled. His eyes regained their spirit, and then he muttered to himself with a puzzled look on his face, "How did I get distracted just now? Did I not rest well last night?" After leaving the hospital, Itachi asked Hyojin, "Senpai, how is your body?" "It's okay. I will be fine after resting for a while." After smiling, Hyojin said, "Your Uchiha's Genjutsu is really useful. If it weren't for you, I would really have a headache on how to ask for leave." Itachi shook his head. "Senpai, you must be joking." Although he didn't directly participate in the previous raid, Itachi learned from Jishuei, as well as Kakashi and Guy of Team 11, that Hyojin defeated the leader of the Akatsuki organization and forced them to flee. At this time, Itachi is convinced that Hyojin, as the leader of Amatsukami, has already surpassed the Kaga level and is approaching the level of the 1st generation Naruto. At this time, Hyojin asked, after Naruto-sama returned to the village, did he make any arrangements? Itachi quickly replied. Naruto-sama immediately held a Jonin meeting and announced the raid on the Akatsuki organization, causing a great sensation in the village. Hyojin nodded. This is within his expectations. The raid, led by the 3 Kage, failed. It would be strange if it didn't cause a sensation. Itachi continued. It is said that Naruto-sama then sent 2 more envoys, one to the land of water and the other to the land of earth. But I haven't found out the specific mission of these 2 envoys. Hyojin chuckled lightly. That's quite fast. Internally, Hokage-sama has also issued several orders in succession. After a pause, Itachi continued. The first order was to gather all the participants of the raid and conduct a large-scale intelligence gathering. I participated in this gathering on your behalf. Hyojin nodded again. For a great shinobi village like Mai, many actions have already formed corresponding systems. For example, this raid, although the operation failed, almost all of the main forces of the Akatsuki organization participated in it. So it is natural for Mai to collect and summarize the information and formulate corresponding countermeasures for the next battle. Itachi pondered for a moment and said, the second order of Naruto-sama is to order the retired shinobi of the noble shinobi clans to reapply for a ninja certificate, or to register a ninja certificate and restore their ninja identity. Hyojin was stunned for a moment, and then immediately nodded. At present, there are only a few thousand shinobi in my village. Hyojin's own ninja number is 010012, which means he is officially the 1012th ninja in my village. The shinobi before him have experienced 3 unprecedented shinobi wars, and more than half of them have been killed or injured. In other words, the number of shinobi in my village is probably only about 6,000 to 7,000 shinobi. Even during the period of Naruto's ninja certificate number was only 012607. However, During the Fourth Shinobi War in the original story, the coalition forces dispatched a total of 80,000 shinobi. Excluding the samurai of the Land of Iron, the coalition forces had a total of 70,000 shinobi. On average, each of the 5 great shinobi villages dispatched about 14,000 shinobi. However, the strength of the 5 great shinobi villages is not completely balanced. For example, the Sand Crypsis and the Mist Village are obviously weak, so it is difficult for them to gather more than 14,000 shinobi. Therefore, the average number of shinobi dispatched by the 3 villages of Mai, Cloud, and Rock should be more than 14,000 shinobi. There are only about 6,000 to 7,000 shinobi in total, but after the total mobilization, Mai can dispatch more than 14,000 shinobi. The difference between the number of shinobi is the retired shinobi of the noble shinobi clans and the retired shinobi of the common shinobi. Therefore, one shouldn't underestimate the number of retired shinobi of the noble shinobi clans. This is a very powerful force. For example, in the Hyuga clan where Hyojin is from, the strongest one is the Hyuga clan. However, the members of the Hyuga clan rarely go to the battlefield, and most of them have not registered their ninja certificates. Only in the genealogy of the Hyuga clan can one find their existence. Usually, almost all of them are in a state of retirement and have no sense of existence. And some of the members of the Hyuga clan, as the guards and attendants of the main clan, although they have received strict ninja training, and their strength is not inferior to ordinary chunin, but they have not registered a ninja certificate in the village and become a registered ninja. This is also the reason why Hyojin forged a non-existent Uchiha flame. But whether it is the Uchiha clan Shinichi, Uchiha Obsidian, or Orochimaru outside of the Uchiha clan, none of them have too much doubt because there are indeed many shinobi in the noble shinobi clans, but they have not registered their ninja certificates in the village. 3 generations recruiting these people obviously touches the interests of the noble shinobi clans. But in the face of the huge threat of Akatsuki and Amatsukami, 3 generations have no other choice. After a moment of hesitation, Itachi said, "Kuroto-san, Naruto-sama has once again extended an invitation to me, hoping that I can join the Umbu. What do you think?" With the large number of casualties in the Umbu this time, many young and excellent shinobi in the village have received invitations from 3 generations, and the famous Itachi is obviously one of them. Hyojin said, "This is your private matter. I shouldn't interfere, but considering your freedom of action, I suggest you refuse the invitation of Naruto-sama." Itachi said with a worried look, "Kuroto-san, I have repeatedly refused the invitation of Naruto-sama. I am worried that this will affect the relationship between the clan and the village. After all, I am the son of the patriarch. Naruto-sama is likely to think that my refusal is the intention of the clan." Hyojin patted Itachi's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry, the village is inseparable from Uchiha now." Chapter 369. After listening to Hyojin's words, Itachi bowed his head and pondered. Although Itachi is still young, his observation and analytical ability are far superior to his peers. He is born to be a ninja, but as a member of the Uchiha clan, he can't see clearly, and some of his judgments will be biased. Hyojin said slowly, "The 3 generations have always been hesitant on how to deal with the Uchiha clan, and now that the true strength of the Akatsuki has been completely revealed, the 3 generations will not be able to cut off their own arm and waste their strength to deal with the Uchiha clan. So you don't need to worry too much. Just think of yourself as an ordinary member of a noble clan." Although Naruto's faction wants to suppress the noble clans, whether it is the 3 generations Naruto, Juan Shao, Chun, and Mito Hamura, they all advocate a step-by-step approach. Only the Danzo clan is eager to destroy the Uchiha clan because of their personal interests. And the current situation of the shinobi world does not allow the slightest turmoil in the village. So even if the Danzo clan wants to destroy the Uchiha clan, the elders of the village will not allow it. Itachi nodded. "I will refuse Naruto-sama." In fact, Itachi himself has not much interest in joining the Umbu. He prefers to stay at home and accompany his younger brother Sasuke. Not long after, Itachi helped Hyojin back to Hyojin's house. Itachi bowed to Hyojin and said, "Kuroto-san, take care of yourself. I will take my leave first." Hyojin smiled and said, "Go and do your thing." Because of the mobilization order issued by the 3 generations to the noble clans, the Uchiha clan, as the strongest clan in Mai, has recently held frequent clan meetings in order to discuss countermeasures. Therefore, Hyojin knows that Itachi, as the son of the patriarch, has a lot of troubles to deal with, so he didn't invite him to the house as a guest. Itachi said, "If you have any instructions, please let me know at any time." Hyojin shook his head and said, "The organization hasn't taken any action recently, so you can focus on your own matters. All right, if you bump into Jishuei, tell him to drop by my house when he's free." After sending Itachi off, Hyojin held onto the wall and slowly walked into the courtyard. Yu, who was cleaning Hyojin's room, quickly came out to greet him. "Hyojin, how did you get injured so badly?" Itachi disguised as Hyojin and returned to the village for 2 days, but during this time, he had been gathering intelligence in the secret operation base, so he did not return to Hyojin's home. Hyojin said gently, "They are all superficial wounds. They will be fine after a few days of rest." Ling did not say anything else. She bit her lips and helped Hyojin into the house. Sitting on the soft chair, Hyojin picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea, then said with a smile, "What's wrong with you?" "I'm really fine. I will recover in a month at most." You shook her head with red eyes. With the Jonin Congress held by the 3 generations, Mai, Kyumo, and San Crypsis joined forces to attack the Akatsuki organization, but failed miserably. It is no longer a secret. Yu is not only a Chunin, but also a member of the Hyuga clan, so her knowledge is no less than that of an ordinary Jonin. She knows that in this operation, the Umbu in the village suffered heavy casualties, and the number of people who came back alive is less than half of the original number. At the thought of Hyojin fighting with the monsters of the Akatsuki organization to the death, Yu panicked. She was very worried at home that she didn't know when she would receive the notice of Hyojin's death. Looking at Yu, who was trying to hold back her tears, Hyojin said apologetically, "I'm sorry for making you worry." Yu shook her head and took the teacup in Hyojin's hand. "I'll go and get you a cup of hot tea." Looking at Yu, who was secretly wiping her tears with her back facing him, Hyojin sighed softly. Both Yuki and Hinata are the same kind of people. Such a weak temperament is actually not suitable to be a ninja, but being in the Hyuga clan, regardless of whether one has the talent to become a ninja or not, whether one has the tenacity of a ninja or not, one can still obtain the Byakugan that others dream of. Therefore, there are many people in the Hyuga clan who are not suitable to be a ninja, but still become one. And the Uchiha clan, which is also a Dojutsu Kekkei Genkai, doesn't have this problem. Because of the lack of talent, the Uchiha clan can't even awaken their Sharingan, making them no different from ordinary people. But those who can awaken their Sharingan are almost all qualified ninjas. Hyojin secretly thought, "I have to find a way to improve Yu's strength." Hyojin doesn't expect you to be strong. He just hopes that you can have more power to protect herself, so that he can feel more at ease. After all, once his true identity is exposed, then everything around him will become the target of attack. And with Yu's current strength as an ordinary Chunin, no matter which force, any Jonin sent by them is enough to threaten you. But how to improve Yu's strength? Hyojin has no clue for a while. The most effective way is undoubtedly the Geno serum that Hyojin once used. As long as you can survive the genetic recombination, then you with the Tenseigan will be able to reach the peak of the shinobi world within a year or 2, from Hyojin's biggest weakness to Hyojin's biggest help. But with the in-depth research of various biological experiments and the development of his own Tenseigan, Hyojin's understanding of Geno serum has also become more and more profound. At this time, he already knows how reckless he was at the beginning. With his weak body at the beginning, trying to activate all the special genes in his body, the degree of risk is even greater than ordinary people trying to transplant Hashirama's cells. The reason why he was able to survive the genetic recombination is not because of how magical the Geno serum he synthesized is, but purely because he was just like Yamato, the lucky guy. If he reevaluates the success rate of the Geno serum, he feels that with Yu's current strength, the probability of surviving the genetic recombination should be less than 1%. Even if he spares no effort to use the Tenseigan chakra to protect Yu's body, the probability will only increase to about 5% at most. If he wants to further improve the probability, he can either improve Yu's basic strength, let you reach the level of Jonin, or even elite Jonin, or be like Otsutsuki Samurai, with the support of the giant Tenseigan that is fused with countless Byakugan. Thinking of this, Hyojin's face suddenly darkened. Although there is no factual basis, Hyojin has a feeling that as he activates the Tenseigan, it will become more difficult for others to obtain the Tenseigan no matter what method they use. In other words, the number of Tenseigan cannot be increased indefinitely. Is it because of the total amount of chakra? Lightly tapping on the table, Hyojin's thoughts gradually dispersed. In a shinobi world, the total amount of chakra is actually fixed. Although the total amount of chakra will slowly increase over time due to the increase in the number of ninjas who can extract chakra, as well as the integration of natural energy, etc., but the total amount of chakra is undoubtedly fixed in a relatively short period of time. Therefore, anything that contains a huge amount of chakra is also fixed to a certain extent. For example, there are only 9-tailed beasts in the real sense. As for the others, whether it is Hyojin's Rinyaku or the demon Morio swallowed by Shino, they are not really immortal tailed beasts in the real sense. In the same way, whether it is Rinnegan or Tenseigan, the number of chakra is also limited by the total amount of chakra. Hyojin activated the Tenseigan, occupying a part of the total amount of chakra, so it will undoubtedly be much more difficult for others to obtain the Tenseigan. Hyojin guessed that it is for this reason that the Otsutsuki clan plunder everywhere in the universe. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin thought to himself, if Otsutsuki Samurai is allowed to have the Tenseigan, then I'm afraid it will be even more difficult for Bell to have the Tenseigan. Otsutsuki Samurai's talent is extremely high. Even without the Tenseigan, he reached the strength above the Kaga level at a young age. Plus, he has the support of the giant Tenseigan on the moon behind him. As long as he is willing to put down his pride and use some tricks, it will be difficult for Hyojin to stop him from obtaining the Tenseigan. And if Otsutsuki Samurai is allowed to activate the Tenseigan first, then the probability of others obtaining the Tenseigan will be even lower. Therefore, with Bell's talent far inferior to that of Otsutsuki Samurai, if she wants to activate the Tenseigan, she must get it before Otsutsuki Samurai. Bell's current situation is the same as that of Hyojin before he was injected with the Geno serum. Limited by her own talent, her strength growth is very slow. Unless she has the careful guidance of a Kaga-level powerhouse, it is impossible to improve her strength quickly. But Hyojin himself is walking the path of biological experiments, so he can't mechanically apply it to Bell, and Jishui and Itachi are all relying on their talent and bloodline. They're still in a state of exploration, so they can't give too much guidance to Bell. Tsunade, after thinking about it, Hyojin felt that only Tsunade, who is good at medical ninjutsu and developed the In seal, may be able to give enough guidance to Bell so that Bell's strength can improve quickly. At this time, Bell came over with a cup of hot tea and said, "Since you are not at home these days, Zuen will move to my house." Hyojin took the teacup and said, "Sorry to trouble you." Bell said, "Zuen is very well behaved. Everyone in my family likes her very much." After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "I need to recuperate during this time, so it is not convenient to take care of her. Let her stay at your house for a few more days." Bell nodded gently. "Well, I will take good care of her." Hyojin tentatively asked, "Bell, are you interested in learning medical ninjutsu?" "Medical ninjutsu?" Bell was startled and asked curiously, "Why do you suddenly ask this? I heard that medical ninjutsu is very difficult to master, and people without talent can't learn it. If you don't try, how will you know that you don't have talent?" Bell lowered her head without confidence. "I'm worried." Hyojin pursed his lips and said deliberately, "If you learn medical ninjutsu, I won't have to worry about no one treating my injuries in the future." Bell's eyes lit up, Okay, I will apply to join the medical class tomorrow. Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry, you won't be able to learn any real skills in the village's medical class. Belle was confused and asked, Then how can I learn medical ninjutsu? Hyojin replied, I will find you the best teacher. In Hyojin's opinion, facing the possible retaliation of the Akatsuki organization at any time, the 3 generations of the Akatsuki have already made a move on the noble families in the village, so there is no reason for them to not use a powerful disciple like Tsunade. Therefore, it is inevitable that Tsunade will return to the village. After all, no matter what Tsunade says, deep in her heart, she still loves the village of Mai that her grandfather founded. Time flew, and soon night fell. Just as the street lights in the village lit up one by one, Ji Shui rushed to Hyojin's house. As soon as he sat down, Ji Shui asked eagerly, Kuroto-san, is your injury okay? Hyojin shook his head and said, It's nothing serious. You don't have to worry about it. Ji Shui said with a remorseful look, This time, it's all because of me that everyone suffered heavy casualties. I should have listened to you and temporarily concealed the information about the Akatsuki organization from the village. Hyojin waved his hand. It's all in the past. Don't mention it again. AI. Sighing deeply, Ji Shui said, I didn't expect the Akatsuki organization to be so strong. The Rinnegan is really worthy of being called the Immortal's Eye. After saying that, Ji Shui got up and bowed to Hyojin. Kuroto-san, I am sorry for dragging you down. Otherwise, you would have been able to defeat the Akatsuki organization's leader. After signaling Ji Shui to sit down, Hyojin said in a deep voice, This raid was too hasty. On the other hand, I really don't have the ability to kill the Akatsuki organization's leader, so I don't blame you. Hyojin won't shirk his responsibility. When Nagato's 6 paths of pain distracted Nagato, he still failed to kill Nagato, which means that his strength is slightly inferior to Nagato, at least in terms of endurance. Hyojin thought to himself, if the one who attacked was Nagato, and he was the one who was attacked, then he would have been dead. Ji Shui quickly said, No, everyone has seen your strength. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid the Allied forces would have suffered even more losses. Hyojin smiled bitterly. On the battlefield, he indeed has the upper hand, but only he knows that he has played all the cards in his hand. And on the Akatsuki organization's side, whether it's Nagato, Conan, or Obsidian who came later, they still have a lot of cards to play. Let's not talk about this anymore. Hyojin took the initiative to change the topic and asked, How is your eyesight? You were too reckless in the previous battle. I should have reminded you that you can't use Susanoo too much with the Manjikyu Sharingan. Ji Shui covered his eyes and whispered, My eyesight has indeed deteriorated a lot. Hyojin frowned. Don't tell me you're already seeing double? Shui silently nodded his head. Hyojin immediately said, Don't use your Sharingan anymore, otherwise you will really go blind. But the current situation, Ji Shui wanted to say something but hesitated. He felt that the danger that Konoha is facing right now is all caused by him, and asking him to recuperate at this time is really a bit shameful for him. Hyojin said lightly, I already have a way. Maybe it can restore your eyesight. Chapter 370. Hyojin didn't talk nonsense, nor did he deliberately mystify her. He directly explained the benefits and the corresponding risks of transplanting the first-generation cells to Ji Shui. Ji Shui was a little surprised. Can transplanting the first-generation cells really restore my Manjikyu Sharingan's pupillary power? In theory, it is indeed so. Hyojin didn't say anything too absolute. After pondering for a while, Ji Shui asked, Kuroto-san, how high is the success rate? After understanding the benefits and risks of transplanting the first-generation cells, Ji Shui is most concerned about the success rate. Hyojin replied slowly, As far as I know, the bloodline of your Uchiha clan seems to have some kind of ability to balance the first-generation cells. So in transplanting the first-generation cells, your Uchiha clan has a unique advantage. Ji Shui's face showed a little bit of hope when she heard this. No one is willing to become a blind person who has lost the light, let alone Jishui, who is one of the pillars of the Uchiha clan and bears a lot of responsibilities. Hyojin continued, moreover, this advantage is related to the Sharingan's pupillary power. The stronger the pupillary power of the Uchiha clan, the higher the success rate of transplanting the first-generation cells. And you open the Manjikyu Sharingan by relying on your own ability at the age of 10. Whether it is talent or pupillary power, you're outstanding in the Uchiha clan. So if you are willing to transplant the first-generation cells, the success rate should not be too low. There should be no Uchiha clansmen among the volunteers for the first-generation cell transplant experiment before the village. After all, with the pride of the Uchiha clan, they will certainly not throw away their face and covet the power of their old enemy, the Senju clan. What's more, most of the Uchiha clan have not even figured out their own Sharingan. There is no need to risk their lives to covet the illusory would release Kekkei Genkai. Without much hesitation, Jishui nodded. Elder, I'm willing to give it a try. Hyojin shook his head and said, although the success rate of the transplant is not low, it is not 100% guaranteed. This is a matter of life and death. You don't have to rush to give me an answer. Think about it for a few more days. No, I've already decided. After a resolute answer, Jishui looked out of the window. The current situation of the village is caused by me. I can't lose my fighting strength at this time and push the responsibility to others. Obviously, the deterioration of Jishui's eyesight had severely affected his combat strength. Given his personality, he would never give up, so he had no other choice. Hyojin looked at Jishui and sighed. Okay, but before the cell transplant, there is a very cumbersome verification process, especially the first-generation cell transplant, so I need some time to carry out the pre-transplant experiment. During this time, try not to use your Sharingan. Don't consume your pupil powers, Jishui said with some embarrassment. But the village is practicing special tactics against the members of the Akatsuki, and there are some parts that require my cooperation. Hyojin's eyes narrowed. Special tactics practice? The reason why Jishui arrived at Hyojin's house so late is because the village is practicing special tactics against the members of the Akatsuki. Although the previous raid failed, they obtained a lot of information about the members of the Akatsuki. After summarizing the information, the village immediately summoned the Umbu, intelligence, sealing, and a large number of elite jonin to start the special tactics practice. For example, Hirako, a member of the Akatsuki. Based on the information collected about Hirako, Konoha designed a set of special tactics specifically to deal with Hirako. This tactical team has a total of 4 people, namely Metke from Team 11, a jonin from the Root, and 2 shinobi from the Seal class. Among them, Guy, a body technique expert who has mastered the 8 inner hidden gates, is the main force. Using the 8 inner hidden gates secret technique, he is able to fight head-on against Hirako, who has mastered the rapid release Kekkei limit. As for the Root ninja in the group, he has a moth that can spit mucus. Not only was the mucus the moth spat out extremely sticky, making it impossible to get rid of once it came into contact with one's body, but the mucus did not contain any chakra at all. It was a natural substance produced within the moth's body, so it would not be countered by Hirako's nether evasion Kekkei limit. The remaining 2 seal-class ninjas in the group can complete a partial seal within a minute and complete a complete seal within 5 minutes. As long as Guy and the Root ninja succeed, they can easily seal Hirako. Another example is the special tactics used against the Obsidian. According to the characteristics of the Obsidian's space-time ninjutsu, the Seal class designed a large net made of special steel wire. This large net is covered with special sealing techniques and nimble bells. Once the net is opened, any enemy chakra fluctuation within the area covered by the net will instantly activate the sealing techniques and bells. The sealing techniques on the net can instantly activate a B-class lightning release ninjutsu electric light, causing the invader's body to be paralyzed, and the bells will ring in an instant to act as a warning. In addition, there's a very special kind of parasitic plague in the Otomo clan. Once this parasitic plague is attacked by other chakra, its body will immediately explode. If these parasitic plague are spread around the area like mines, it can also effectively contain the Obsidian's space-time ninjutsu. As for the other members of the Akatsuki organization, such as Shinichi, Bipa, Juzo, etc., the village has also designed corresponding special tactics, but whether these tactics will work or not will only be known after actual practice. However, there are not many ninjas in the village who can imitate the members of the Akatsuki organization, especially Hiriko, who has 5 Kekii, and Shinichi, who has Manjikyu Sharingan. In the village, except for Shuei, who has the name Blink, there is no one else in the village who can imitate the members of the Akatsuki organization. Therefore, Shuei has been imitating Hiriko all day today, cooperating with the village to practice the special tactics designed to deal with Hiriko. After learning the details, Hyojin grinned. How is the effect? Shuei thought for a moment and said, Hiriko's combat experience and adaptability are only at the level of an ordinary Jonin. Although he also has Sharingan, as long as Guy can contain him, the chances of success are still very high. However, the requirements for Kai Senpai are very high. Not only does Kai Senpai need to be able to keep up with Hiriko's speed, but he also needs to be able to resist Hiriko's Jinjutsu. Hyojin laughed. It's not that easy. In terms of speed alone, Hiriko was even faster than the 4 generations Lei. After all, the 4 generations Lei had to fully activate the lightning release chakra mode in order to catch up to Hiriko, who had the rapid blood limit release. The speed of the 6 gates, Kai, should not be able to reach this level. It would need to be at least 7 gates. But Guy didn't have any fancy secret techniques, nor did he have any messy body transformation techniques. His body and cultivation were all slowly tempered by him, so his foundation was solid. It wasn't something that Shino's inferior 8 inner hidden gates could compare with. But at the same time, his progress was relatively slow. At the very least, he had just touched upon the threshold of opening the 7th gate of wonder. There was still a long way to go before he could completely grasp it. Thinking of this, Hyojin suddenly smiled and said, Has the village come up with a strategy specifically to deal with me? Shuei shook his head and said, Not yet. The village doesn't have much information about you, so they can't formulate an effective strategy in a short time. Hyojin put away the smile on his face and said seriously, But I'm afraid that the Akatsuki organization has already begun to formulate a strategy. In the previous raid, Hyojin used all his means. Not only did he expose the Tenseigan chakra mode, but he also exposed the rain pull, golden wheel reincarnation explosion, silver wheel reincarnation explosion, and other means, so the Akatsuki organization must be formulating a special strategy to deal with him. Hyojin's eyes flickered as he secretly pondered, I hope that Shinichi will be able to find some useful information this time. This is also the reason why Hyojin hinted to Shinichi not to act recklessly after discovering that he can't kill Nagato. As Hyojin's influence on the shinobi world grows larger and larger, his advantage of foresight is getting smaller and smaller. Therefore, the importance of Shinichi as an undercover agent is highlighted. Whether Nagato really transplanted the Hashirama cells, what will the Obsidian clan do, and how will the Akatsuki organization deal with Mai, Kyomo, and Sancrypsis alliance, Hyojin needs Shinichi's information. If he loses Shinichi as an undercover agent, then Hyojin will really be in the dark about the Akatsuki organization. Just when Hyojin was distracted, Shuei said, Senpai, I heard that Naruto-sama specifically selected a few young ninjas to try to practice the Flying Thunder God Jutsu of 4 generations, hoping to use space-time ninjutsu to restrain space-time ninjutsu. After the death of 4 generations, although the Flying Thunder God Jutsu has not been lost in the village, as long as they don't know about the Fire Jinjutsu, the 3 of them can jointly use the Flying Thunder formation to teleport people and materials over long distances. But no one in the village can use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu in actual combat. Oh, Hyojin's interest was piqued and he asked, Who did you pick? Shuei replied, I only know that Kakashi Senpai is one of them. I don't know about the others. Hyojin murmured, Kakashi. In terms of talent, there is no doubt that Kakashi is the strongest ninja of the same generation, completely crushing Hyojin and Obsidian. Plus, he is the disciple of 4 generations, so he is not unfamiliar with the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. So the 3 generations chose him to try to practice the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, hoping that Kakashi can restrain Obsidian, which is obviously a good move. As for whether Kakashi can master the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, Hyojin is also difficult to judge. After all, the difficulty of mastering space-time ninjutsu is too high. Even the 3 generations, known as the Doctor of Ninjutsu, failed to master the essentials of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Therefore, even the talented Kakashi may not be able to completely master the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. This is also the reason why Hyojin doesn't covet the Flying Thunder God Jutsu too much. He has a deep understanding of his own talent. His talent in sealing techniques is the highest, followed by taijutsu, and then ninjutsu. As for jinjutsu, his talent is a complete mess. Even if he uses the fire release clone and has the eternal Manjiki Sharingan, his jinjutsu is still very crude. The difficulty of practicing space-time ninjutsu is far higher than taijutsu, jinjutsu, and jinjutsu. Throughout the history of Mai, among the tens of thousands of ninjas, only the 2nd generation Naruto and the 4th generation Naruto can master space-time ninjutsu alone. As for Obsidian and Kakashi, they rely on the unique pupil technique of the Manjiki Sharingan to master space-time ninjutsu. Moreover, Hyojin's own Kekkei Net project is too busy. He really doesn't have enough energy to be distracted by the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Once his Kekkei Net project succeeds, he will be able to master space-time ninjutsu as soon as he reaches the 6th path level. At this time, Jishui asked, Kuroto-san, do you need Itachi to protect you while you are recuperating? Hyojin shook his head and said, no need. Jishui hesitated for a moment and said, according to the analysis of the intelligence team, the Akatsuki organization is likely to launch a fierce retaliation against our Mai in order to deter the 5 great shinobi villages. If the Akatsuki organization decides to retaliate while you are recuperating, I'm afraid that your safety will be difficult to guarantee. Hyojin said lightly, don't worry, I've already made arrangements. Seeing that Hyojin has already made arrangements, Jishui no longer said anything and left. After Jishui left, Hyojin returned to his bedroom on the 2nd floor and took out a storage scroll from the ninja bag on his waist and gently pressed it with his palm. Bang! With a burst of white smoke, a human body appeared in Hyojin's bedroom. This human body is none other than Hyojin's fire clone, Uchiha Inferno, who possesses the eternal Manjiki Sharingan. Hyojin has long taken into account the safety issues during his recuperation period, so he brought the fire clone with him to prevent any accidents. However, putting a living body into a storage scroll is fine for a short period of time, but if it is kept for a long time, it will endanger the cell activity of the living body. Therefore, Kuroto decided to take the fire clone out of the storage scroll. Glancing at the fire clone, Hyojin looked around the bedroom again and finally decided to hide the fire clone under his bed. The bedroom is a private space, and no one will enter Hyojin's bedroom except for you, and you won't check under Hyojin's bed for no reason. Pushing the fire clone under the bed, Hyojin arranged a seal around it that is enough to isolate the Byakugan. In this way, there shouldn't be any risk of exposure in just a few weeks. During this time, if the Akatsuki organization really retaliates against Mai and affects Hyojin, he can immediately change his body and use the fire clone to deal with the enemy. After settling the fire release clone, Suijin took out a storage scroll, for which he took out some experimental equipment and a small mass of white substance. This white substance is nothing but a small part of the body tissue of the white Zetsu clone that Hyojin captured on the battlefield a long time ago. Chapter 371. The cell tissue of the white Zetsu clone can't be completely equated with the Hashirama cells. Although the white Zetsu was created by Uchiha Madara using the divine tree and the Hashirama cells, there are many types of white Zetsu, including the main body of the white Zetsu, and a small number of special types. For example, Hoodlum, who helped Obsidian, is a special type. And the tens of thousands of mass-produced white Zetsu clones that participated in the Fourth Shinobi War. The only ones that can barely be equated with the Hashirama cells are the main body and a small number of special types. As for the tens of thousands of mass-produced white Zetsu clones that participated in the Fourth Shinobi War, they're all degraded white Zetsu clones. Although there are some remnants of the Hashirama cells in their bodies, the power of the Hashirama cells is very weak and no longer has the value of research and transplantation. The white Zetsu clone in Hyojin's hands was originally sent by the Akatsuki to monitor Shinichi. At that time, Shinichi had already awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and his strength surpassed the level of an elite Jonin. Looking at the entire shinobi world, he is a very rare combat power. Therefore, with the importance that Obsidian attaches to Shinichi, the white Zetsu clone that was responsible for monitoring Shinichi is a tribute. Before the establishment of the Kusanagi village, the Land of Grass was the strongest country in the shinobi world for a period of time. Rumor has it that the Land of Grass hides the strongest war weapon that can destroy the entire shinobi world. So Naruto-sama speculates that the radicals of the Kusanagi village should have the confidence in this aspect. That's why they dared to cooperate with the Akatsuki. Guy frowned when he heard this. If this is the case, then we must not let the radicals of the Kusanagi village succeed. The Akatsuki organization is already very difficult to deal with. If the Kusanagi village is involved, wouldn't it be even more troublesome? Kakashi said, "Don't worry. Naruto-sama has already made arrangements, and the radicals of the Kusanagi village are not idiots. They won't risk offending the three great shinobi villages of Mai, Cloud, and San Crypsis at the same time by openly cooperating with the Akatsuki organization. Therefore, once this matter is exposed by the conservatives of the Kusanagi village, the radicals' plan will have already failed." Hyojin didn't answer. He rubbed his chin, his thoughts already scattered. In his impression, the secret of the Kusanagi village seemed to be something called the Box of Bliss. But what exactly was that thing, and who made it, Hyojin didn't know. He only vaguely remembered that if the box absorbed enough chakra, it could release a monster named Satoshi. The Land of Grass seemed to have almost ruled the entire shinobi world by controlling the monster named Satoshi, which is why the Kusanagi village wanted to revive the glory of their ancestors. It's just that the opening of the Box of Bliss requires a large amount of chakra, and there are very few in the entire shinobi world that can satisfy such a huge amount of chakra's amount. Except for a few, there are only the nine-tailed beasts. Coincidentally, the Kusanagi village doesn't have any tailed beasts, so even though they tried their best, they still couldn't open the Box of Bliss. According to the impression of his previous life, Hyojin knows that the Kusanagi village is indeed in control of the Box of Bliss. But at the same time, he also knows that the Kusanagi village has long lost the method to control the monster named Satoshi. So once the Box of Bliss is opened and the monster named Satoshi is released, the first one to suffer will definitely be the Kusanagi village itself. Hyojin secretly sighed. These guys don't even know what's inside the Box of Bliss, yet they still dare to act so recklessly. It's only a matter of time before they die. After chatting for a while, because of their busy work, Kakashi and Guy took their leave. Shortly after Kakashi and Guy left, you came to deliver food to Hyojin as usual. While eating the food carefully prepared by you, Hyojin said, "You, Tsunade, Sama has returned to the village, and I want her to accept you as her disciple. What do you think?" You, who was happily watching Hyojin eat, was taken aback. "What?" Hyojin glanced at you. "Don't you want to be Tsunade, Sama's disciple?" You quickly said, "Of course I want to." Becoming Tsunade, Sama's disciple is the dream of all the female shinobi in the village. But Tsunade, Sama, is so strict. How could she choose me as her disciple? Hyojin grinned. "As long as I want to, nothing is impossible. You just wait at home. I will handle this matter." You said with some worry, Tsunade, Sama is the granddaughter of Hashirama. I am afraid that the reputation of the Hyuga clan will be useless in front of her. Hyojin smiled. I have my own way. Chapter 372. For the next 2 weeks, the shinobi world was calm. The Akatsuki organization didn't take any action to retaliate. It was as if they disappeared from the world overnight. But the 3 great shinobi villages didn't take this lightly. Everyone knows that this is just the calm before the storm. As for why the Akatsuki organization didn't immediately retaliate, Hyojin doesn't know the specific reason, because during this period of time, his contact with Shinichi has been completely cut off. There are only 2 possibilities for this situation. Either Shinichi's current environment makes it inconvenient for him to send messages, or Shinichi's identity as an undercover agent was exposed and eliminated by the Akatsuki organization. In contrast, Hyojin is more inclined to the former. Because Shinichi only contacted him one way, apart from him, only Jisue has seen some signs of Shinichi's identity. Therefore, as long as Shinichi doesn't seek death himself, the possibility of him being exposed is extremely small. Therefore, Hyojin boldly speculates that all the members of the Akatsuki organization are currently gathered together, hiding in a secret stronghold and under the surveillance of Obsidian and Zetsu. As for why the Akatsuki organization didn't immediately retaliate, Hyojin suspects that it may be related to Nagato's physical condition. If Nagato transplanted the Hashirama cells, even with his Rinnegan and the physique of the Uzumaki clan, it would still take a long time for him to adapt to the Hashirama cells and master the wood-release Kekii limit. And if he didn't have the Hashirama cells transplanted, he would probably be lying in bed recuperating and wouldn't have the time to plan revenge. After 3 weeks of recuperation, the petrification in Hyojin's body finally subsided, and he arrived at the Umbu base as scheduled and canceled his injury leave. After that, Hyojin received a new appointment. He was promoted. The large number of members of the Black Ops caused more and more novices to be added. Hyojin, a newcomer who had only been in the Black Ops for a few years, quickly became a veteran in the Black Ops. It has always been the tradition of Mai's Black Operation to use the old to lead the new, so in the case of a shortage of manpower, Class 11 was split up by 3 generations. Captain Kakashi was transferred to the 1st Special Tactics Team and became the captain of the 1st Special Tactics Team. Kai was transferred to the 4th Tactics Team and became the vice captain of the 4th Tactics Team. Hyojin was transferred out of Class 11 and became the captain of the newly formed Class 7. Only Jisue remained in Class 11 and replaced Kakashi's position as the new captain of Class 11, being promoted from an ordinary member of the Black Ops to a squad leader of the Black Ops. This seemed to be only a small promotion, but in fact, Hyojin's status had undergone earth-shaking changes. For the vast majority of Umbu members, their identity will not change for the rest of their life, even if they quit the Black Ops, because the Umbu squad leader is already a high-level member of the Black Ops directly under Naruto. When he was promoted to the Umbu squad leader, Hyojin was actually promoted from a Tokubetsu Jonin to a Jonin. At the same time, he also has the qualifications to be the captain of the Black Ops, the captain of the Shadow Guards, and the candidate for the leader of the Jonin class. In theory, as long as Hyojin doesn't die on the battlefield, doesn't defect, and doesn't lose his qualification as a ninja due to injury, then it is natural for him to become a candidate for the advisory elder of the village, or even a candidate for the position of Naruto. Therefore, the Umbu squad leader is the most critical step for an ordinary ninja to take to the top of the village. If you can't take this step, then you can only be an ordinary ninja forever. And once you take this step, you can squeeze into the top circle of the village. Wouch! Hyojin, who activated the body flicker technique, landed in a practice field in the village, and this is the gathering place of the newly formed Class 7. Seeing that the captain has arrived, the 3 people who rushed to the practice field early hurriedly greeted him. All 3 of them are dressed in my Umbu attire, and they also wear masks on their faces. 2 of them have a graceful figure. One has fiery red hair, and the other has long purple hair like satin. Judging from their figures, these 2 should be young female ninjas. The remaining one is a man of medium build with a long sword on his back. Tokubetsu Jonin, Kurenai, reporting to you. Tokubetsu Jonin, Yuki Shien, reporting to you. Tokubetsu Jonin, Moonlight Gale, reporting to you. The three of them took off their masks while quietly looking at Hyojin. Because Hyojin is also dressed in umbu attire and wearing a mask, the three of them only know that Hyojin is their captain, but they don't know the identity of Hyojin. Hyojin chuckled and immediately removed the mask on his face. I am the new captain of Class 7. Hyojin. Kuroto. Kurenai was taken aback. She obviously didn't expect that her captain would be Hyojin. Yuki Gale and Yuki Shien were also a little surprised, but both of them are considered to be Hyojin's juniors, so they quickly calmed down. Kuroto crossed his arms in front of his chest and leaned against a tree. He said lightly, "From now on, I am your captain. During the mission, you must unconditionally listen to my command. Do you understand?" Kurenai, Gale, and Shien nodded together. The rules of the Umbu are far stricter than ordinary ninja squads. When performing secret missions, Hyojin even has the power to execute members who violate orders. Hyojin smiled and said, "Introduce yourselves, such as what you are good at, what are your strengths, and so on." I can perceive chakra, can temporarily act as a perceptual ninja, can perform ninjutsu, and is best at the secret jinjutsu of my family, as well as jinjutsu. Perhaps remembering the scene where she was beaten by Hyojin during the Tokubetsu Jonin exam, Kurenai's voice became smaller and smaller. The Yuri clan is also one of the secret shinobi clans of Mai, but because of the heavy casualties of the clan in the war, their reputation is not as good as the other clans like Inoshikacho. However, the secret jinjutsu of the Yuri clan, as well as the combination of jinjutsu and taijutsu, are still very powerful. In the original story, although Kurenai is not as strong as Kakashi and Guy, but with her extraordinary attainments in jinjutsu, she could be regarded as one of the best jonin in the village. At this time, Moonlight Gale took a step forward and introduced himself. I am an expert in my style kenjutsu, and can perform a variety of my style kenjutsu. Cough cough. I have also mastered the keketsu, which can be used to sneak in for investigation or assassination. After a few words, Moonlight Gale coughed twice out of habit. Shien, who was next to him, asked with concern, "Didn't you just drink your medicine before going out? Why are you coughing again?" Moonlight Gale shook his head. "I'm fine. Since Tsunade-sama has returned to the village, you better go and let Tsunade-sama check your body. Even if you're a taijutsu ninja, your physique is still very important." After a short pause, Hyojin turned to Shien and said, "Shien, it's your turn." Shien said, "I am also an expert in my style kenjutsu, and can perform a variety of my style kenjutsu. I have also mastered stealth and assassination skills, and have carried out many assassination missions." Hyojin nodded and immediately fell into thought. Including Kuroto, who has the Byakugan and has the ability to investigate from a distance, the newly formed Team 7 is obviously biased towards investigation and assassination from the personnel configuration alone. At present, although the village hasn't issued any mission, but Hyojin speculates that the three generations want this newly formed 7 squad to carry out some kind of difficult investigation or assassination mission. Glancing at the faces of Kurenai, Moonlight Gale, and Shien, Hyojin's face gradually became gloomy. When he was in Team 11, because Jisue was there, he could skip work at any time. It seemed that he was busy with work, but in fact, he could do whatever he wanted. But now that he has become the captain of the 7th squad, and the members are all newcomers, it's not easy for him to skip work. Just when Kuroto was wondering if he should let Itachi become a shadow man and act as the captain of Team 7 when he is busy, Kurenai came over and asked curiously, "Kuroto, is the Akatsuki really as powerful as the village says?" Hyojin deliberately said with a straight face, "Call me captain." Kurenai pouted, "Humph." Hyojin immediately said, "In the propaganda, the village did not tell the truth." Kurenai smiled and said, "I knew it. How strong can an organization composed of traitorous ninjas be?" Shaking his head, Hyojin slowly said, "What I mean is, in order to avoid any negative impact, the village deliberately weakened the threat of the Akatsuki organization in the propaganda. But the actual situation is that the Akatsuki organization can destroy any shinobi village, including our Mai." Kurenai's smile immediately froze, and Gale and Sia on the side also slightly opened their mouths, their faces full of shock. Suijin continued, "The only reason I am able to become your captain is because all the members of the previous team, 7 died in battle, so don't underestimate the enemy. If you encounter any Akatsuki members, and if you don't have a mission to complete, keep your life first." Under normal circumstances, Hyojin would have to endure for at least another 5 or 6 years before he can become an Umbu squad captain. So his promotion this time is entirely due to the serious loss of members in the Umbu. Many Umbu squads even died in battle, and the 7th squad is one of them. After officially taking over the 7th squad, Hyojin came to the Naruto building, ready to report the situation of the 7th squad to the 3 generations. In the past, this kind of thing was handled by Captain Kakashi, but now that Hyojin is also the captain, this kind of thing has fallen to his head, and he can't escape. Just as Hyojin stepped into the main entrance of the Naruto building, a group of ninjas dressed as grass ninjas happened to walk out of the Naruto building. The leader of this group is none other than Hyojin's acquaintance, Tatsuya of the Kuzunobi village. In order to quickly find the descendants of Queen Rorin, Hyojin once went to the Kuzunobi village to issue a commission mission. At that time, the Kuzunobi who accepted Hyojin's commission mission was Tatsuya. After glancing at Tatsuya, Hyojin quickly withdrew his gaze and closed the Tenseigan under the mask. With the growth of his pupil power and the enrichment of his knowledge, Hyojin is no longer the same as before, so with just a quick glance, he can see that this Tatsuya is very strong. In terms of chakra's amount alone, it has reached the level of an elite jonin, and the nature of the chakra in his body is very special. It is a kind of yang attribute similar to the Uzumaki clan's physique. The Kuzunobi village still has some foundation. After thinking secretly in his heart, Hyojin passed the Kuzunobi and entered the Naruto building. After coming to Naruto's office, Hyojin said, "Naruto-sama, Umbu's 7th squad Hyojin reporting to you." 3 generations, who was dealing with the pile of documents on the table, didn't look up. He just responded and asked, "Yes, Kyudo, how is your injury?" Hyojin replied, "I have recovered. Very good." 3 generations closed the documents in his hand, then took out a file from the drawer and handed it to Hyojin. "I suspect that the Mist Village has been infiltrated by the Akatsuki organization. This is the information about the Mist Village. Study it carefully and set off as soon as possible. I need to understand the real situation of the Mist Village." Hyojin tentatively said, "Our 7th squad has just been formed, and the members are not familiar with each other. I am afraid it will take some time to prepare for a mission like sneaking into the Mist Village." 3 generations shook his head. "We don't have much time left. I can only give you a week to prepare. After a week, you must immediately lead the 7th squad to set off." "Yes." Hyojin didn't say anything more, took the file, and left Naruto's office. Kuroto had already expected the mission that 3 generations assigned to him. If it's not sneaking into the Mist Village, then it's sneaking into the Rain Village. After all, Kurenai, who is proficient in Jinjutsu, and Moonlight Gale, who are proficient in assassination, are all excellent candidates for this kind of mission. The purpose of 3 generations gathering so many excellent candidates in one class is self-evident. After returning home, Hyojin immediately looked through the information in the file. There are many spies planted in each of the 5 great shinobi villages, and mine naturally has a source of information in the Mist Village. According to the information sent back by the spies planted in the Mist Village, the Mist Village is currently surging with undercurrents. 4 generations Mizukage sent an elite squad to assist the Akatsuki organization, but only the Demon Mermaid returned to the Mist Village. Among them, except for Kujimaru, who died in the battle, Zabuza and Kyubi's Jinchuriki all disappeared. The disappearance of Jinchuriki naturally caused an uproar in the Mist Village, but the Four Generations Mizukage didn't seem to care and didn't take any action. This also caused the dissatisfaction of the Mist Village towards the Four Generations Mizukage. Hyojin shook his head and sighed. It seems that the Mizukage is really under the control of Obsidian. The Kage of the Mist Village has become a puppet of someone else. This is definitely a great shame for the Mist Village as one of the 5 great shinobi villages. At the same time, because the Mist Village is one of the 5 great shinobi villages, the Mist Village has a deep foundation and countless elites, so the abnormality of the Four Generations Mizukage has been noticed by many people in the Mist Village. The intelligence even shows that there is a possibility of a coup in the Mist Village in the near future. Is it Zabuza or Mei Xiaoming? Kuroda doesn't remember how Mei Xiaoming got her position, but he does remember that Zabuza launched a failed coup and then became a stray dog, reduced to the point of being a hired thug for someone else. Chapter 373. After carefully studying the information given to him by the 3 generations, Hyojin's face gradually sank. There is no doubt that the Mist Village is no different from a powder keg at this time. No matter who it is, as long as a little spark is thrown into it, it will immediately ignite a monstrous fire. Hyojin thinks that with his current strength, sneaking into the Mist Village to gather information is not a difficult task. But if he brings the newly formed team, 7 with him, it will be hard to say. Although Kunai, Hayashi, and Suiyin are the best of the new generation in the village, but after all, they only have the strength of a Tokubetsu Jonin. Once their whereabouts are exposed in the Mist Village, it will be very difficult for them to escape the siege of the Mist Ninjas. The 3 generations really gave me a difficult problem. After putting away the document bag, Hyojin sighed softly. Early the next morning, the newly formed Class 7 gathered in a training field. Hyojin's eyes swept from Kurinai, Hayashi, and Suiyin one by one, and immediately said, Naruto-sama assigned a task to our team, 7, but this task is very difficult. So before carrying out the task, I need to conduct an assessment on you. Kurinai asked anxiously, what task? Hayashi and Suiyin asked in unison, what assessment? We will talk about the task later. Today we will conduct the assessment. After a pause, Hyojin slowly said, the content of the assessment is very simple. The 3 of you join forces to fight against me. I want to see your true strength. Kurinai snorted lightly. Humph, even if you are stronger than me, it is impossible for you to fight against the 3 of us, right? Ahem. After coughing twice, Hayashi also said, Captain, this kind of competition is not fair to you. Suiyin put her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist. You underestimate us too much. We are all qualified Umbu ninjas. Hyojin glanced at them and said lightly, you know nothing about power. It seems that it is necessary to wake you up. In the great shinobi village, the young shinobi of the noble shinobi clan or secret technique family often have a kind of self-confidence. In the original timeline, Hong knew that the Uchiha clan was proficient in illusions, and Itachi was an S-class wanted criminal who wiped out the entire clan, but she still chose to duel with Itachi in illusions. After discovering the conspiracy of San Cripsis and Orochimaru, Hate did not decisively choose to retreat and report the information, but after being exposed, he chose to confront the elite Jonin of San Cripsis head-on, and as a result, he lost his life in his village. Confidence and arrogance were only separated by a single thought. In order for these guys to be more disciplined when carrying out missions in the future, Hyojin had to let them understand that there was always someone better out there. Seeing that Kuroda didn't change his mind and insisted on fighting the 3 of them alone, Kurinai, Kage, and Shien didn't say anything and immediately retreated in a fan-shaped formation. Each of them occupied an advantageous position and surrounded Kuroda in the center. At this time, the 3 of them all had an eager expression on their faces. Red's gorgeous eyes stared at Hyojin. Her previous defeat has always been on her mind. Even in her dreams, she wants to defeat Hyojin once and restore the prestige of the Shimura clan's genjutsu. Gale and Shien both drew their swords and took the stance of my flow sword technique. Both of them are extremely talented in swordsmanship, and they have mastered many high-level sword techniques at a young age. Moreover, the two of them are childhood sweethearts and have been practicing together since childhood. Their cooperation with each other is extremely tacit, and the two of them can exert the power of 1 + 1 is greater than 2. You must have the determination to kill me. Don't hesitate. I don't have time to play with you. Hyojin stood quietly in the same place. His expression was calm, and his tone was flat. The three of them looked at each other when they heard Kuroto's words, and a touch of anger appeared on their faces. Red said angrily, "All right, anyway, Lady Tsunade is also in the village. Even if you're injured by us, you won't die so easily, right?" The corners of Hyojin's lips curled up slightly, forming an arc. "If you can really injure me, I'll give you the position of leader." After being provoked by Hyojin, Red immediately replied, "All right." After saying that, Red pounced towards Hyojin, took out a few kunai from the storage bag at her waist, and threw them at Hyojin. At the same time, Gale and Shien leaped up high and shouted in unison, "Dance of the Three Suns and Moons." In an instant, a few afterimages appeared on their bodies, as if they were clones. One was divided into 3, and the two of them transformed into 6 figures, slashing at Hyojin from different directions and angles. With just a glance, Hyojin could tell that the My Flow sword technique that Gale and Shien used was a kind of ninja technique that contained ninjutsu. There was no distinction between real and fake. No matter which of the 6 figures hit him, he would be injured all the same. However, the two swordsmanship was still not beyond the scope of sword attack, and it could be blocked by hard objects. In the original space-time, the elite superior ninja Maki of the Sand Crypsis had forcefully resisted Gale's sword, and then easily killed Gale. Swish naturally, Hyojin would not resist forcefully. He immediately performed the teleportation technique, and in the sharp sound of wind breaking, he disappeared into thin air. Red was shocked. This so fast. Gale and Shien, who had missed their attacks, were also shocked when they landed. At this moment, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he appeared behind Gale. He held a short sword in a reverse grip, and with the back of the short sword, he slashed at the back of Gale's neck. Shien, who was at the side, was shocked. She could not care less, and quickly swung her sword at Hyojin, wanting to save Gale. Bang! With a flash of sword light, Hyojin's figure, which was penetrated by the sword light, exploded into a cloud of white smoke. Shadow clone? Oh no! Just as this thought appeared in her mind, Shien's vision went black, and she was knocked out from behind. At this moment, Red and Gale finally reacted, and they retreated in a flustered manner. They had originally planned to use Red as bait to lure Hyojin to attack, and then Gale and Shien would join forces to perform the My Flow sword technique to defeat Hyojin in one blow. However, they did not expect that not only did Hyojin not fall for the trick, but he also pretended to attack Gale, causing Shien to reveal an opening. In front of the two of them, he easily subdued Shien, who was not weak. Red reminded Gale with a serious expression, "Be careful. His teleportation technique is very fast." Swish! Before she finished speaking, Red felt darkness in front of her, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. As a qualified Tokubetsu ninja, she instinctively wanted to retreat, but before her body could react, she was hit by several palms. The meridians in her body were blocked by chakra, and she instantly lost the ability to refine and use chakra. At this moment, a long sword struck, slashing at the figure who had attacked Red. The person holding the sword was naturally Gale. The angle of his long sword was very tricky, and it was extremely fast. As long as the figure hesitated for a moment, the long sword would definitely hit him. However, in the face of the sudden long sword, the figure only took half a step back. As if he had foresight, he narrowly dodged the long sword that was slashing at him. Then, he turned around and sent Gale flying with a kick. Clapping his hands, Hyojin said emotionlessly, "You have failed the test, and I am very disappointed with your performance. We will continue the test tomorrow, and I hope you can perform a little better." After saying this, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he disappeared from the training field. Red and Gale, who had fallen to the ground, looked at each other and saw shock and shame in each other's eyes. There is no doubt that Kurenai, Gale, and Shien didn't show their full strength, especially Kurenai. Because her Jinjutsu was restrained by Suijin, she didn't have much to show and was easily defeated. Bang! Red punched the ground heavily and said unwillingly, "Damn it, why didn't the gap between me and him shrink? Instead, it's getting bigger." Gale stood up and said, "Ahem, Captain's strength is more powerful than we thought." It seems that we have to study our tactics, or else tomorrow's test. After leaving the training field, Hyojin did not stop to rest. He activated his teleportation technique and rushed to an izakaya in the village. Arriving at a single room on the second floor, Hyojin smiled. "You're here so early. I'm not late, am I?" In the single room, a female ninja with short black hair stood up and said, "Why did you ask me out? I have a lot of things to do." This female ninja with short black hair was Hyojin's contemporaries and also the disciple of Tsunade, Mute. Hyojin and Tsunade had nothing to do with each other, so he had to ask Tsunade's disciple, Mute, out first. He wanted to test Tsunade's attitude through Mute and see if Tsunade was willing to accept her as a disciple. After sitting down, Hyojin immediately said, "We are contemporaries. Do I need any reason to ask you out?" Mute stared at Hyojin suspiciously. "You don't like to talk to people in the ninja school. Why are you so enthusiastic all of a sudden? Tell me, you must have something to ask of me." Hyojin smiled. "You are indeed the disciple of Tsunade. I do have something to ask of you." "What is it?" Kuroto said, "Yui wants to become a disciple of Tsunade-sama and learn medical ninjutsu, but I don't know if Tsunade-sama has any plans to accept apprentices in the near future, so I want to ask you." Ling. After thinking for a moment, Mute said, "I'm afraid Ling will be disappointed. Tsunade has no plans to accept disciples. Although she has returned to the village, she doesn't want to manage the affairs of the village at all." Hyojin's face darkened. "Is there no way at all?" Mute shook his head. "No one can force Tsunade to do something she doesn't want." Kuroto said indifferently, "Even if it is Tsunade-sama, there will always be things she wants or things she wants to do but can't do, right?" Mute smiled and said, "If even Tsunade can't do it, what can you do?" Hyojin stretched out his finger and shook it in front of Mute. "Just because Tsunade can't do it doesn't mean that the Hyuga clan can't do it. I heard that Tsunade owes a lot of debts outside." Mute waved his hand again and again. You don't talk nonsense. How can Tsunade owe debts?" Seeing Mute like this, Hyojin's face darkened. "Hey, Tsunade didn't really return to the village to avoid debts this time, did she?" "Ha!" After laughing awkwardly, Mute said, "You really like to joke more and more. Tsunade is a famous sannin in the ninja world. Avoiding debts? That's impossible." Hyojin rubbed his chin and murmured, "Is the legend of Fat Sheep true?" Mute said helplessly, Okay, I'll help you ask, but medical ninjutsu is not so easy to learn. I've been with Tsunade-sama for so many years, but I've only learned a little bit." Mute is telling the truth. In terms of learning difficulty, medical ninjutsu is on the same level as sealing jutsu. Chapter 374. After carefully calculating the accounts, Mute patted his chest and said to Hyojin with a smile on his face, "Hyojin, I will talk to Tsunade-sama about Yu's apprenticeship. You can rest assured, I don't think it will be a big problem. Kuroto is originally a Konoha shinobi, whether it is age or family background. Both are impeccable. If not for this, Tsunade wouldn't accept a person with unknown background as an apprentice no matter how high the price is." Hyojin nodded. "Well, then I'll leave it to you." After saying goodbye to Mute, Hyojin pondered a little, and then walked slowly towards the Hyuga clan mansion. Because the murderer who murdered the elder of the Hyuga clan has not been caught, and Hyojin has publicly questioned the traditions of the Hyuga clan, many members of the Hyuga clan are very dissatisfied. So in order to avoid intensifying the conflict between the Hyuga clan and the Branch clan, during the period of Hyojin's injury, the Hyuga clan did not send anyone to visit him in a high-profile manner. But in private, whether it is Patriarch Hayashi or Richa, both conveyed their concern to Hyojin through you. Originally, at this juncture, Hyojin didn't want to get involved in the troubles of the Hyuga clan. After all, it is not the best time to reorganize the Hyuga clan and clean up the diehards. But considering that your apprenticeship with Tsunade is also a good thing for the Hyuga clan, so Hyojin feels that the Hyuga clan should bear some of the expenses of apprenticeship. Of course, the most important reason is that Hyojin really has no money in his hands. As soon as he entered the Hyuga clan, Hyojin's brows slightly twisted and a trace of doubt flashed on his face, because he found that the people in the Hyuga clan, although they behaved very respectfully and politely after seeing him, they seemed to always keep a certain distance under this respectful and polite appearance. When he arrived at the ancestral residence, the guard hurriedly greeted him. "Miss Jing, the Patriarch is waiting for you in the side hall. Please follow me." There is no doubt that as soon as Hyojin stepped into the clan land, some clansmen reported the news to Hayashi, but this is also normal. After all, Hyojin is already the captain of the Umbu squad at this time, and in the elite Umbu, he is also one of the high level, and he has the potential to compete for the position of Umbu Minister, Shadow Guard Captain, and the leader of the Jonin class. Hyojin didn't say anything and just nodded silently. Soon, Hyojin arrived at the side hall and saw Hayashi. Hayashi looked at Suijin up and down and said with a smile, "It seems that your body is recovering well." Hyojin nodded and said, "Yes, it was just a superficial wound." After pondering for a moment, Hayashi said, "Kuroto, this time you were injured, and the family didn't send anyone to visit you. I hope you don't mind." Hyojin smiled and said, "It doesn't matter." Hayashi explained again, "The previous murderer hasn't been caught, and there is some misunderstanding between you and some people in the ancestral family. So, I suppressed Richa and didn't let him visit you on behalf of the ancestral family. I don't want you to enter the eyes of some people during this sensitive period." Hyojin said lightly, "Patriarch, I really don't care." Hyojin doesn't care about what the ancestral family thinks of him at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have openly questioned the tradition of the ancestral family. It must be known that for the conservative Hyuga clan, tradition is the foundation of the ancestral family to rule the branch family. This is not just a matter of soft fist, but also the legitimacy of the existence of the ancestral family. Therefore, questioning the tradition is almost equivalent to questioning the ancestral family. This is also the reason why the ancestral family is very dissatisfied with Hyojin. Individual extremists even suspect that Hyojin murdered the ancestral family elder, but because there is no evidence and Hyojin's status is no longer what it used to be, so even if there is suspicion, the ancestral family can't do anything to Hyojin. Hayashi breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that you can understand. For Hyojin, Hayashi values him very much. This is not only because Hyojin's strength is good, and he is the pillar of the new generation of the Hyuga clan, but also because Hyojin took the risk last time to solve the Watanabe incident for the Hyuga clan, so that the Hyuga clan escaped a disaster. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Kuroto stated his purpose of coming here. Learning that Hyojin wants you to become Tsunade's disciple, Hayashi nodded thoughtfully. Well, this is indeed a good idea. 4 generations died early, 3 generations are old, and the most promising to become the next Naruto are the 2 disciples of the 3 generations, Jiraiya and Tsunade. At this time, if a member of the Hyuga clan is arranged to become Tsunade's disciple, then in the future, if Tsunade succeeds as the 5th generation Naruto, the relationship between the Hyuga clan and the Naruto clan will be even closer. Seeing Hayashi nodding, Hyojin smiled and said, "I have probed Mute's intentions. If he wants to become a disciple, I am afraid it will take a lot of money as a gift." Hayashi immediately laughed and said, "I finally know why you came to see me. Well, the matter of you becoming a disciple is of great benefit to both herself and the Hyuga clan. As the patriarch, I naturally can't be stingy. So, I will personally pay 30 million, no, 35 million, as a gift for you becoming a disciple of Tsunade. Hyojin was not too happy, but secretly thought, it seems that the patriarch has not heard of Tsunade's nickname Fat Sheep. 35 million is actually a huge amount of money, but for Tsunade, who owes a lot of debt, Hyojin estimates that 35 million is not enough to fill her big hole. Seeing that Hyojin was silent, Hayashi asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Shaking his head, Hyojin smiled and said, "On behalf of you, I thank the clan for their support. One should not push one's luck." Hayashi suddenly took out a huge amount of 35 million. If Hyojin was still not satisfied, he would be a little ungrateful. After sealing the box full of money into the storage scroll, Hyojin left the Zone clan's mansion with a smile on his face. When he returned home, he found an inconspicuous small bamboo tube in the yard. He rolled his eyes and glanced at the bamboo tube, only to see a note inside. With a chuckle, Hyojin grabbed the bamboo tube in his hand and took out the note inside. There are a few lines on the note. The content is all the little tricks the Zone clan has secretly done to Hyojin. For example, the Zone clan is secretly investigating Hyojin. Another example is that the Zone clan is recently training another talented branch family member. Wanted to let that obedient branch family member replace Hyojin's position in the Black Ops. Keeping the note, Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Interesting. The person who sent this note obviously wants to use Hyojin to deal with the Zone clan. Perhaps in the eyes of that person, Hyojin, who is suspected and hostile by the Zone clan, must be full of resentment at the moment, holding a grudge against the Zone clan. However, the other party did not expect that the Zone clan is nothing in Hyojin's eyes. His vision is no longer limited to a clan and a village. Along with the improvement of his strength, Kuroto's tolerance had also unknowingly increased by a lot. For the current him, the suspicion and hostility of some members of the clan couldn't affect his state of mind. It was like a crayfish that was about to enter the pot. No matter how it bared its fangs and brandished its claws, the diners wouldn't care. "I didn't have time to look for you, but you jumped out yourself." Hyojin crushed the note and walked into the house. If Hyojin didn't guess wrong, the person who sent him the note is likely to be the guy who killed the Zone clan elder and sneaked into the Zone clan secret vault. Perhaps in the other party's heart, Hyojin, who is also a branch family member, is a target that can be won over and used, so he sent this note. On the one hand, it is to provoke the relationship between Hyojin and the Zone clan, and on the other hand, it is to show goodwill to Hyojin. If some of the members of the Zone clan are just conservative and ignorant, then this guy is full of evil intentions. The next day, Hyojin came to the training ground as usual. Perhaps because of yesterday's lesson, this time, Red, Gale, and Xian's tactics are much more conservative. All kinds of shadow clone techniques, substitution techniques, and traps are endless. Without using the ability of the Tenseigan, Hyojin took some effort to defeat them one by one. Glancing at the three people on the ground, Hyojin said indifferently, "With your strength, if you encounter a member of the Akatsuki, you will die without a doubt. So work hard and continue the assessment tomorrow. I hope you can have a better performance." After saying that, Hyojin left the training ground just like yesterday. Red said with some annoyance, "It's really too hateful." Gale coughed lightly while silently staring at the long sword in his hand, seemingly thinking about something. Xian struggled to stand up. It seems that, as Captain said, we must have the determination to kill him to have a chance of defeating him. Among the three, only Xian, who has the biggest age difference with Hyojin and is the least familiar with Hyojin, was the first to wake up. Red frowned slightly. "You mean to say that this assessment should be regarded as a real battle of life and death, not an ordinary contest?" Xian nodded lightly. "I think that's what Captain means." Gale also stood up at this time. "From now on, we will treat Captain as a real enemy." When he was defeated today, Gale faintly felt that something was wrong. After listening to Xian's words, he understood what was wrong. "Although my flow sword technique is not a bloodthirsty technique that focuses on killing. But if the wielder does not have the slightest killing intent, then the power of my flow sword technique will inevitably be greatly reduced. While the members of Class 7 were discussing tomorrow's assessment, Hyojin once again came to the second floor of the izakaya. Because today's assessment was not as straightforward as yesterday, Hyojin was a little late, but Mute obviously didn't care about this, smiled, and said to Hyojin, "I mentioned to Tsunade-sama that you wants to become an apprentice." "What did Tsunade-sama say?" Mute said, "Tsunade-sama originally didn't intend to accept an apprentice, but she heard that you wants to practice medical ninjutsu with her, so she has a faint idea of accepting an apprentice, but..." Halfway through the words, Mute smiled embarrassedly. After all, he was too thin-skinned, and some words really couldn't be said. Naturally, Hyojin wouldn't laugh at Mute's joke, so he took the initiative to say, "You don't have to worry about the gift of apprenticeship. Our Hyuga clan can afford it. Once you becomes an apprentice of Tsunade, not only her own strength will be improved, but her status in the family and village will also be improved. It should be known that 4 generations is the apprentice of the Sannin, and becoming a disciple of the Sannin basically means that she has integrated into the Naruto faction. Moreover, you will be protected by Tsunade. Staying by Tsunade's side, ordinary people won't be able to do anything to her at all." Hearing Hyojin take the initiative to mention the gift, Mute breathed a sigh of relief, then said with a smile, "Don't get me wrong, Tsunade-sama didn't accept an apprentice because of the gift. Tsunade-sama has always liked you. Last time, when choosing apprentices in the ninja school, she almost chose you." I know. Hyojin showed an expression that said, "I know." Mute nodded. "Well, it's good that you know." Kuroto asked, "What's the amount of the gift?" Mute turned over the small book, looked at it, lowered his head, and said with some embarrassment, "If possible, Tsunade-sama hopes." No, I hope it's 50 million. At the end of the sentence, Mute's voice was almost inaudible. If it wasn't for Hyojin's good hearing, he might not be able to hear the specific amount that Mute said. 50 million! Hyojin tapped his fingers on the table and thought. The amount of the gift that Tsunade offered was actually less than Hyojin expected. 50 million may be a huge amount for others, but for the Hyuga clan, it may be a huge amount of money. However, Hyojin only had 40 million in his hand, which was 10 million short of 50 million. Seeing that Hyojin was silent, Mute quickly said, If you think the amount is too big, we could discuss it." 50 million was undoubtedly a huge amount of money in Mute's eyes. Even if ordinary ninjas worked hard for decades, they would never be able to save so much money, so she was very guilty at the moment. Hyojin waved his hand. "No, I'll give you 70 million. Mute was startled for a long time before she reacted and said in surprise, "What?" Hyojin said, "But this is not without conditions. I hope that Tsunade-sama won't hide anything, and don't have any prejudice against you, and see her as a real disciple. Instead of bargaining, it's better to increase the investment so that Tsunade will owe you a favor and guide you more attentively. As for the problem of money, 10 million is one thing. 30 million is also one thing. Anyway, he will go to the Mist Village soon." Mute nodded again and again. "Don't worry, what I said just now is not a lie. Tsunade-sama really likes you. Tsunade-sama actually told me in private that the Hyuga clan with the Byakugan that can see through the meridians, blood vessels, muscles, and bones of the human body is the best candidate to practice medical ninjutsu. So, she has been planning to choose a disciple from the Hyuga clan. After you becomes a disciple, she will treat everyone equally and won't have any prejudice against you." Hyojin nodded with satisfaction. "I'm relieved." Chapter 375. After negotiating the amount of the gift money, Hyojin said, "Please don't let you know about the gift money." If you knew that Hyojin had spent a total of 70 million to become her disciple, Hyojin was worried that she would feel pressured, and he was even more worried that she would feel uncomfortable around Tsunade. Mute nodded repeatedly. Yes. Muin was too ashamed to show her face in such a transaction, so she naturally wouldn't announce it to the public. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin continued. The amount of the gift money is not small. I need some time to raise it, but you can rest assured that I will definitely give the full amount to Tsunade within a month at the latest. Mute waved her hand awkwardly and said, We are not in a hurry. There is no hurry. Hyojin nodded and immediately walked downstairs. Mirror. Mute suddenly stopped Hyojin. Hyojin looked back and asked, Is there anything else? Mute sighed and said, I didn't expect you to have such a gentle side. For a moment or two, I really envy you. After saying that, she, who had successfully completed this private transaction, breathed a sigh of relief, and a relaxed smile appeared on her face. Hyojin smiled and shook his head. Without saying anything, he turned around and left the izakaya. After saying goodbye to Mute and returning home, Hyojin did not stay idle. He continued to carry out the cell fusion experiment of Jishui and White Zetsu's clone. During the days of recuperation, Hyojin carried out as many as hundreds of cell fusion experiments. After repeated experiments, the results of the experiment confirmed his previous guess that the Uchiha clan's bloodline could indeed effectively improve the success rate of transplanting the first-generation cells. As for Jishui and the White Zetsu clone in his hand, 39 of the hundreds of cell fusion experiments were successful, and the success rate was as high as 30%. Because it is a cell fusion experiment, it only involves the strength of chakra. Therefore, during the actual transplantation, the Manjikyu Sharingan has to be taken into account to balance the power of Shursui Sharingan. If the role of Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan is also taken into account, then the success rate of transplantation is estimated to increase by another 10% to about 15%. In other words, Hyojin estimated that the success rate of Jishui's first-generation cell transplantation was more than 40%. Although the success rate wasn't more than half, it was already very impressive. In the field of biological experiments, there was no experiment that was 100% safe. Even the most basic transplantation fusion could lead to unknown mutations and unexpected intense rejection, which would lead to the failure of the experiment. Therefore, a success rate of 40% was already a success rate worth betting on. One must know that the success rate of the first-generation cell transplantation experiment in the village had always been 0%, but there were still many volunteers who resolutely chose to gamble on that elusive and rare luck. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was the next day. Hyojin came to the training ground as usual, but he didn't see the members of Class 7 in the field. Those guys couldn't have given up, right? Suddenly, Hyojin felt a slight murderous intent. He frowned and instinctively dodged to the side. Screech, just as Hyojin dodged to the side, a sharp blade almost brushed past the forehead protector on his forehead, leaving a shallow mark on his forehead protector. Byakugan open. Hyojin didn't panic at all. As he retreated, he activated Byakugan. In an instant, a blurry figure of chakra appeared in his field of vision. Hyojin was deep in thought. Penetrating escape. Although the penetrating escape blood limit that Moonlight Gale mastered was also passed down through the bloodline, even in his family, there were only a few people who could master this blood limit. In this generation, he was the only one. Therefore, in my village, where there were many blood inheritance families and secret skill families, his family wasn't well known. However, he shouldn't underestimate the penetrating escape blood limit, because the penetrating escape not only could make him invisible, but could also completely eliminate his aura. It was a sharp weapon for stealth and assassination. Just now, Hyojin almost fell in a Gale's trap. Hiss, hiss. Before Kuroto could launch a counterattack, the sound of detonation talismans igniting sounded under his feet. Boom! Soon, the roar of the explosion resounded throughout the whole training ground. Huge dust and shock waves swept the surrounding trees, causing the thick trees to shake back and forth. The moment before the explosion, Hyojin, who had used the teleportation skill to escape, landed firmly on the ground in the distance. The corner of his mouth twitched. You even predicted my dodging? Looks like you put some effort into it. Obviously, The three of them had expected that Gale's surprise attack would not succeed, so they predicted the area where Hyojin would dodge and advance and set up a trap in this area. However, with Hyojin's Byakugan activated, the three of them could be seen at a glance, no longer hiding. After all, Byakugan was the nemesis of all stealth. At this time, Red directly jumped down from the big tree where she was hiding. Her hands quickly formed a seal, and she shouted in a low voice, "Magic, Sakura dance." Whoosh! The moment Red's illusion was activated, a cool breeze blew through the training ground. Under the cool breeze, the green grass and leaves made a soft sound, making people feel calm and peaceful. At the same time, Red's body seemed to be blown away by this cool breeze, turning into a group of pink cherry blossom petals. These petals gathered and scattered, vaguely maintaining a human shape. Illusion. Hyojin's eyes were cold at first, but he soon relaxed his brows. The cherry blossom petals that are gathering and scattering in my eyes, but vaguely maintaining a human shape, are actually Red's body, but her illusion interferes with my vision. No, I smell the fragrance of cherry blossoms, and my sense of smell is also interfered. Kuroto knows very well that he didn't completely fall into Kuroto's Jinjutsu, or rather, Kuroto's Jinjutsu isn't an ordinary Jinjutsu. This Jinjutsu is different from the Jinjutsu of the Uchiha clan. Compared to the Jinjutsu of the Uchiha clan, Kuroto's Jinjutsu is more inclined towards visual confusion and olfactory interference. Therefore, as long as the cherry blossom petals were regarded as Red's body and were not confused, Red's illusion would be mostly broken. However, Hyojin felt that things would not be so simple, so he did not rush forward rashly. Instead, he slowly pulled out the Kusanagi pill from his waist and said calmly, "If this is all, it will be useless against me." Red shouted, and the cherry blossom petals all over the sky rushed towards Hyojin. In the face of this situation, Hyojin only needed to use rain pull to repel everything, and he could easily break it. However, he was also a little curious about what kind of tactics Red and the others had figured out, so he placed the Kusanagi pill in front of him. Countless cherry blossom petals flew up and down, constantly interfering with Hyojin's vision. Although Hyojin knew that these cherry blossom petals were all fake, and the main part was actually Red's body, the interference on his vision made his Byakugan's vision full of Chakra's reactions, and he could not clearly distinguish the specific location of Gale and Shien. Hyojin thought to himself, Red's illusion is quite good. No wonder she is a secret ninja clan that specializes in illusion. At this time, the cherry blossom petals all over the sky swept toward Hyojin under the breeze, and in an instant, they wrapped Hyojin inside. In the gap between the petals, an inconspicuous long sword quietly stabbed out, aiming at the blind spot of Byakugan behind Hyojin. She even considered the blind spot of Byakugan. While smiling, Hyojin suddenly turned around with the Kusanagi pill in his hand. Clang! With a crisp sound, the long sword that stabbed at Hyojin's back was broken into two the moment it collided with the Kusanagi pill. In the sky full of cherry blossom petals, there was a surprised female voice. It seemed to be Shien's voice. At this time, Hyojin casually intercepted the broken half of the blade. His eyes narrowed, and he confirmed the direction of the voice. With a flick of his finger, the broken blade shot out. With a soft groan, Shien was shot by the broken blade and fell out of the sky full of cherry blossom petals. Moreover, the forces on the shinobi continent are very complicated, and the four great shinobi villages keep each other in check, so no one really dares to put all their forces into the land of water. Uchiha didn't choose the cloud, rock, or sand crypsis, but chose the mist village to infiltrate. It is precisely because of the unique terrain of the mist village that they can spy on the shinobi continent and defend the land of water. Once the shinobi war breaks out on the shinobi continent, and the 4 great shinobi villages start fighting each other, they can wait for the opportunity to select the target. As long as the Mist Village's leaders can maintain their rationality, then the Mist Village will slowly grow bigger and bigger, which is almost inevitable. In fact, even if the 2 generations of Madara and Obsidian continued to infiltrate and destroy the Mist Village for more than 20 years, the Mist Village's bloodline was almost wiped out. The secret technique family suffered heavy casualties. The elite 7 swordsmen either died or betrayed the village, and recently even the 6-tailed Jinchuriki Yutaka betrayed the village. But the strength of the Mist Village cannot be underestimated. Even if the 4 generations of Mizukage Goji and Yagura, who became Obsidian's puppets, are not counted, there are still a number of elite shinobi in the village, such as Mei and Blue. Especially Mei, who has mastered the double blood limit of lava release and boiling release, has the real strength of a Kage, and she had a good performance in the 4 Shinobi War in the original time and space. If there is no further interference from others, it may have to wait for the 6th generation Mizukage Jijuro to come to power decades later before the Mist Village's foundation is completely exhausted. In Hyojin's view, it is very correct for Madara and Obsidian to create chaos in the Mist Village through infiltration and use civil strife to consume the Mist Village's foundation and war potential. Therefore, in this operation, even if he eliminates the 4 generations of Mizukage controlled by Obsidian, he will use other ways to further weaken the Mist Village, just like how he abducted Ayler and weakened the Sancrypsis. Hyojin thought about it as he returned home. This mission to the Mist Village will inevitably be accompanied by a lot of battles, and he may even fight with the Jinchuriki, so using the Fire Release clone is the best choice. First, he can run the Fire Release clone through fierce battles, so that his spirit body and the Fire Release clone can quickly reach a perfect fit. Second, the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan on the Fire Release clone has a certain restraining effect on the Jinchuriki, so it will be more easy to deal with the Jinchuriki. Otherwise, if the main body fights, he will inevitably use the Tenseigan Chakra mode, and the Tenseigan Chakra mode is too eye-catching. Using it easily has the risk of exposing his identity. Zabuza, who was carrying a ninja blade, glanced coldly at the group of subordinates in front of him. As the leader of the new generation of the Mist Village, Zabuza also had a group of supporters after years of operation. At this time, these people were gathered together by him, more than 60 people, almost filling the entire house. Calming his restless mind, Zabuza said, "Tonight, we will change the Mist Village, change history." In an instant, more than 60 Mist ninjas knelt on one knee and said, "We obey your command." Zabuza nodded with satisfaction. Today, the 4 generations Mizukage has become more and more unpopular in the Mist Village, especially after the 6-tailed Jinchuriki fake-out affected. Almost all the forces that supported the 4 generations Mizukage became the opposition. This was also the reason why Zabuza dared to rebel. In his mind, as long as he could attack the Mizukage building and successfully assassinate 4 generations Mizukage, then the Mist Village would be forced to accept him and let him take the Mizukage's throne. After all, there weren't many people in the Mist Village who could compete with him for the Mizukage's position. Bujan's mansion was located on the 2nd floor of a dilapidated shop across the street. Qing staggered a few steps, then sat down on the bench, gasping for breath. Mei Ming quickly supported him and asked, "What's wrong?" Qing shook her head. "Maybe I've been using white eye for too long. I suddenly feel a little dizzy." Although the Byakugan does not cause an unbearable burden to the transplant user like the Sharingan, but there is still a burden, not to mention that even the Hyuga clansmen find it difficult to maintain the Byakugan in the open state for a long time. Mei Ming said, "Let's take a rest first." After catching his breath, Green said, Including those who snuck into the mansion today, Zabuza has already gathered 60 to 70 people. His main subordinates are almost all here as well. I suspect that he will make his move either today or tomorrow. Mei Ming was lost in thought when she heard this. Although Zabuza's actions are covert, it can't be hidden from the people who have the intention. Mei Ming believes that many people in the village have already noticed it. Even if they don't know the specific actions of Zabuza, they have more or less guessed his plan. But the Mizuki's reaction is puzzling, and this is also what puzzles Mei Ming. After a while, Mei Ming asked, "Is the defense of the Mizuki building still the same as yesterday?" Qing replied, "Well, there's basically no change. There are still 3 Umbu squads on the periphery and the guards of the Mizuki building on the surface. As for the interior, our people just sent the news that there is no change in the defense strength. There are still 2 Umbu squads and 1 enchantment squad." Mei Ming murmured, "Why? Didn't 4 generations notice it